Welcome to Acera's special LARPD seminar. So in this seminar, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to tell you the information that new employees and mid-career employees might want to know. And then in the second half, I'll talk to the people who are getting ready to retire and impart all of the information that you might want to know when you're doing your final retirement preparations. You probably have some questions because you're attending this webinar. You might have a question like, this is very common. What do I need to know about my pension? Second most common question, do I need to do anything? And if I need to do anything, what do I need to do? So we're going to answer those questions for you. We will talk about, in the first half of the presentation, I'll help you understand some retirement basics. I will also help you understand some pension math. And we'll talk about the retirement formula that we use to calculate your pension benefit when you go to retire. We'll also talk about purchasing service credit. I will help you get a pension estimate. I will help you understand when you are actually eligible to retire, because there's a certain point before which you are not eligible to retire. So I'll help you understand when you meet the criteria for becoming retirement eligible. I'll help you understand additional benefits that Acera offers on top of the lifetime monthly pension allowance. I will talk about designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for death benefits. I'll help you understand some career planning options. I will help you make a retirement planning picture. I'll talk about starting a 457B account briefly. We'll talk very briefly about signing up for Acera News. That's the first half of the presentation. If you want to, you can stick around for the second half of the presentation, which is going to be our pre-retirement checklist. So these are the additional topics that I typically talk about during the pre-retirement webinar. I'll help you learn what happens to your unused sick leave when you stop working and or retire. We'll talk about helping you understand how vacation affects the salary component of the retirement formula. That's a big topic that people have a lot of questions about. So I will give you a detailed understanding of that. I'll help you choose your retirement date. I will talk about the process that you use to actually apply to retire and talk about the 5 retirement allowance options. I'll go into more detail about the medical, dental, and vision benefits. I'll just touch on that in the first half of the presentation when I talk about understanding additional benefits. So we'll go into detail about the medical, dental, and vision benefits, and then we'll talk a little bit about life events. Okay, so it's a really packed checklist, so let's jump right in. Let's talk first about understanding retirement basics. Okay, who is Acera? In one sense, Acera is this acronym, and it stands for the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But Acera is made up of a lot of people. There's about 90 of us that work at Acera, a little over 90. And what we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to all of Acera's members, all of our members. That's all of you. You are an Acera member, so you are also part of Acera. And you're an Acera member because of the position that you work in and who you work for. Okay, so you work right now, or at some point you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position for one of Acera's 6 participating employers. In this case, we're just talking about LARPD. So you work for LARPD. LARPD decided in the past that in order to provide robust pension benefits to their employees, they would work with Acera, and Acera is your pension fund. So you are members of Acera automatically because of that position that you work in and who you work for. As an Acera member, you pay into Acera's fund with every paycheck. So every paycheck, you can see money coming out of your paycheck going into Acera's fund. In fact, here's an example of that. This is a screenshot of a county paycheck. Your pay stub might look different, but if you look at the before tax deductions column of your pay stub, you'll see a line that says something like retirement. Maybe it says your tier, and you'll see money coming out of your paycheck and going into Acera's fund. Additionally, your employer is making contributions to Acera's fund on your behalf every time you make contributions. So at Acera, we don't just want that money to sit there and collect dust because it has the potential to earn a lot of money if we invest it. And in fact, if we didn't, we would be losing out on a potential source of income. So we invested in a diverse array of investments all over the world, and we earn a lot of interest on the money that you all contribute and your employer contributes. So it's these three sources of income that give us the big pool of money that we call a Sarah's fund. So then what do we do with that money? Well, meanwhile, you are working in your retirement eligible position and you are earning credit toward retirement as you work throughout your entire career. Then at some point in the future, you're going to retire. And when you retire, that's when you stop earning credit toward retirement and you start collecting the retirement that you earned. It's going to come in the form of a monthly retirement allowance payment, also known as a pension payment or pension benefit, or lifetime retirement allowance. These are all synonymous terms for the monthly allowance that is going to be deposited automatically into your bank account on the last business day of every month for the rest of your life after you retire. So you cannot outlive your retirement. It's a really amazing thing. It's a guaranteed benefit that you get every month for the rest of your life that you earned. So you can count on it. Pensions are special in that way because it's that guaranteed income that you're going to enjoy in retirement based on the amount of credit that you earn in the system. It helps you plan for retirement when you know exactly what your income is going to be from the pension fund in retirement. Another reason pensions are special is because, especially a Sarah, with the way a Sarah works, when you retire and you start getting those monthly payments, we are going to actually pay you back all of your employee contributions that you paid into the fund over your entire career. You're going to get all that money back within the first 3 to 5 years of your retirement. It's amazing because after that time, let's say you're retired, let's say you live another 20, 30 years after that first 3 to 5 years, it's almost like a pure bonus for you because you get all your money back in that first 3 to 5 years and then some for the rest of your life. You just keep getting paid out. And it's because of partially your employer's contributions is what gets paid out next, but then actually 3/4 of your lifetime pension is paid by that interest that we earn on the investments. So pensions are special in that way. Okay, let me talk about some pension milestones. This is a high-level view of a timeline of pension milestones you'll see in regards to your career and your membership with Acera. First milestone is your date of hire. This is your first day of work. Okay, then what happens is, let me see if this is correct. Actually, I think I'll check on this for you during the break. But I think for LARPD, the first day of entry into Acera and the date of hire may be the same day. For a lot of the rest of the employers, what happens is there's a 2-week gap, and the first day of your second pay period is your first day of entry into Acera. But I think for LARPD, it may actually be your date of hire. In any case, this is regarding your working in your full-time retirement eligible position. Okay. So if you started out working part-time for your employer, you were not working in a full-time retirement eligible position. Okay. So Julie is saying it is the date of hire. Okay. So for you all, these 2 days are the same. It's your date of hire and your date of entry are the same day. So if you started out working part-time or you started working for a temp agency or under contract or something like that, you weren't an Acera member yet until the first day of that full-time retirement eligible position. And that is the first day of your Acera membership. Then what happens is 5 years goes by. If you work full-time for 5 years, or whenever you work the equivalent of 5 full-time years, because if you did go down to part-time after that, then it would be the equivalent of 5 full-time years. What happens is you are considered vested in the retirement system, and vesting just means guaranteed. So once you're vested, you're guaranteed the guaranteed benefits that are guaranteed by state law. Okay. Then what happens is there's some other indeterminate amount of time that passes, and everyone's situation is going to be different. So you become eligible to retire at some point in the future, after you become vested based on a combination of your years of service credit, so how many years that you've worked, and your age. And there are a few different combinations that will get you to retirement eligibility. I will talk about those in more detail during the presentation. But once you reach that combination, then you are eligible to actually retire. You can retire on that day, or you can wait and earn more credit toward retirement and earn a higher retirement allowance and retire at some date in the future that you choose. Because ultimately, the next milestone is the date of retirement that you are going to choose when you are ready to retire. So that's the final milestone on the chart where you're earning retirement, and this is when you start collecting the retirement that you earned. Okay, there's a couple more milestones on here. You're going to collect your retirement every month until your death. That's when your retirement payments stop. But then there's an additional milestone on here, which is your at the time of retirement, you can name a beneficiary for a continuing payment after your death. And in most cases, that will be a lifetime benefit, a lifetime continuance to a beneficiary that you name. And so that would stop when your beneficiary dies. Okay, so those are all the pension milestones. We'll talk more about some of those as we go along. Another quick word about vesting. The guarantee from the vesting is it's guaranteed by state law. Okay, so the state law mandates how we run the pension system, and that's what guarantees your benefit. The vested benefits, the guaranteed benefits, are the monthly retirement benefit for life. That's that lifetime monthly retirement allowance. Also, an annual cost of living adjustment, which is a annual percentage increase to that retirement allowance. Also, a $1,000 lump sum death benefit. There are other death benefits associated with the different retirement options that you will have the ability to choose from at the time of retirement, but this $1,000 lump sum basic death benefit is kind of guaranteed in all cases. Let me tell you about your tier. So because you all work for LARPD, sorry, I'm having to kind of customize this in my mind on the fly. Because you all work for LARPD, you can forget about all of the timelines here except for the LARPD timeline. Okay, so we're just looking at this one timeline. The way your date of entry, the way your tier works is it's based on your date of entry. So if you enter a SARA before the cutoff date for the next tier, that puts you in the earlier tier. So for example, if you entered a SARA before October 1st, 2008, that would put you in tier 1. If you entered a SARA between October 1st, 2008 and December 31st, 2012, that would put you in tier 3. If you entered a SARA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would put you in tier 4. Now you can see that the other employers have tier 2. You all don't have tier 2. I think back in 2008, LARPD decided to do away with tier 2 and establish tier 3. And there may have been an opportunity at that time to choose between tier 1 and tier 3. So some of you may have gotten that choice, if I recall correctly. Regardless, what if you made the choice at the time, then whatever tier you chose became permanent. Or if your date of entry determined your tier, then your tier is permanent. So whatever tier you're in, that's the tier that you're in. You can verify your tier if you log into your account on our website. So you go to our homepage, click the login button, log into your account. If you've never done that before, you have to create an account, but you can get in there pretty quickly once you do that. And it'll show you your date of entry, and it'll show you your tier definitively that we have in the system for you. Okay, so this is, because this is kind of a hybrid webinar, this is a topic that I talk about with new employees and mid-career members. I talk about retirement income planning, basically. And so what I like to do is show this slide kind of right off the bat, and then we return to it later. So when you go to retire, looking, way in the future, you are not going to receive your paycheck anymore from your employer. You're going to need income from somewhere else to pay for your life in retirement. One of those sources of income, because you're an ACERA member and you're earning an ACERA pension, is going to be your ACERA monthly pension. But there are other sources of income available, including Social Security, because you all are integrated with Social Security. You are paying into the Social Security system. So one day you will get to collect money out of the Social Security system when you become eligible. Okay, anything beyond that, unless you have other pensions from earlier service for other employers, anything beyond that is going to be your own personal savings and investments. And what financial planners will tell you is that you need, in retirement, 70 to 80% of your working salary in order to maintain your standard of living. Okay. So when I just show you this equation and you see your pension, Social Security, savings and investments, and it's way in the future, and you're thinking, holy crap, how am I going to get up to 70 or 80% income replacement by that time? It can seem scary. Before, I sat down and ran the numbers on this, that is the reaction that I would have too. But I will give you some steps to get you pointed in that 70 to 80% direction. And it's actually not that complicated. You all are super smart. You are really skilled at your jobs and understanding your jobs. And so this is actually kind of a piece of cake once I go through the steps. So we'll come back to this. The reason I wanted to show you this slide now is to talk about, at first, we're going to talk about the ACERA monthly pension. We'll talk a lot about that. And then we'll revisit this slide. We'll talk a little bit about income planning after retirement regarding Social Security and additional savings and investments. Okay, the next item on our checklist is understanding pension math. So this will really get into some of the nuts and bolts of how ACERA works. So let me try to make this as easy as I can for you. In the future, when you go to retire, you are going to get, as that monthly retirement allowance, you're going to get a percentage of your highest working salary for each year of service that you work. Okay. Now, what this formula is illustrating, this multiplication, it's just the math version of this sentence. You're going to get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service. So there's three factors in the formula. There's this age factor percentage, which is the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service. Okay, and the service credit is years. It's measured in years of service credit. Highest average monthly salary is simply that, your highest average monthly salary you earned at any point in your career. Okay, let me give you an example. It will help illustrate this way easier. Let's say that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service is 2%. And let's say that you work for 20 years, and so you earn 20 years of service credit in the retirement system. That means that you are going to get 2% of your highest salary for each one of these 20 years. So if you're getting 2% for each of 20 years, that means you're getting 40% of your highest salary, because all we do is multiply the 2% times 20 years. 2% for each of the 20 years is 40%. Now let's stick some more numbers in there. Let's say your highest average monthly salary is $5,000 per month while you're working. Well, your retirement allowance is going to be a simple math problem. We simply take 40% of 5,000. We multiply them together. That means your monthly retirement allowance for life is $2,000 every month for the rest of your life, plus cost of living increases annually. So that's how that works. It's not that complicated once you break it down like that. The bottom line here is that the higher any of these, because this is a multiplication, the higher any of these numbers are, the higher the age factor percentage, the more years of service credit that you earn, the more salary, the higher the salary that you earn as you get raises and cost of living adjustments as the years go along, that's going to result in a higher monthly retirement allowance when we go to calculate it. So kind of what you can think about is maximizing each of these three numbers. And these are kind of the three categories in which you're earning credit toward retirement. You're earning credit by getting older and getting higher and higher age factor percentages. You're earning credit by just simply working more years and earning more years of service credit. And you're earning credit by getting higher and higher salaries. Let me talk about each one of these factors in the formula and give you a few more details on each of them. And that'll help you really plan for your retirement more effectively, I think. It'll help you maximize each one of those numbers. So my question in talking about the first factor in the formula, the age factor percentage, my question is, what percentage of your highest salary will you get for each year of service? It may not be exactly 2%. So what you're going to do is you are going to use this age factor chart in this example. So that's what we will do at Acera is we'll use this age factor chart when we're determining what age factor percentage we're going to use for you in the formula. So in order to find yourself on this chart, first forget about the safety half of it. Nobody at LARPD, I don't think, is a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer or any other kind of sworn officer. That's what safety members are. So you all are general members. You're going to forget about tier 2. In fact, you're going to forget about all the other columns except for your specific tier. Okay, so if you're in tier 1, you're looking at the tier 1 column. Tier 3, you're looking at the tier 3 column. Tier 4, you're looking at the tier 4 column. Okay, so the way this works is when you go to retire, we're going to take one of these percentages out of the chart and put it in the formula for you based on your age at retirement. So for example, if you are a tier 3 member and you retire at age 52, we're going to come over here to the tier 3 chart. We're going to go down to age 52, 2.20%. That is the percentage we will put in the formula right here for you. Okay. So you can see that it's based on your age at retirement. And in fact, the older you are when you retire, the higher the age factor percentage that you're going to get, because you've probably noticed that the percentages get higher and higher the older you are when you retire, up to a limit. The limit is notated in this chart by the blue boxes. So that is the highest age factor percentage you can get for your tier. And you would get that for tier 1 if you retired at age 62 or older. So if you retire at 63 or 64 or 65, you still get the 2.62%. That's the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. For tier 3, it's 2.50% at age 55. For tier 4, it's 2.50% at age 67. Okay. So the last thing I will point out about this chart is another thing that you may notice are there are big gaps in the ages, and that's because there are actually many different degrees of the age factor percentage, and they actually go up each quarter year that you age based on your birthday. So if your birthday is January 15th, 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th, 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th, 3 quarters after your birthday is, what is that? August, September, October 15th, and then back to January 15th. So every time you pass one of those days and you don't retire, you go up 1 notch in this age factor percentage chart and you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. So there are more increments in between these. If this were the full chart, it would say 50, 50 and a quarter, 50 and a half, 50 and 3/4, 51, and so on and so forth in quarter year increments. If you ever want to see all of the incremental increases, what all the percentages are, you can find that on our website. If you go to acera.org/age, or if you just search for age factor percentage chart or age factors. So that's all out on our website. For those of you who are not anywhere near retirement yet, and you're probably going to forget all those details, if you're going to forget most of those details, just remember the bottom line is that the older your retirement age equals the higher the age factor percentage in the formula for you, up to the maximum for your tier. Okay, so we talked about the age factor percentage. Let's talk about earning service credit and how we arrive at a service credit number to put in the formula for you. So you start earning service credit on your date of entry into Acera. And like we said for LARPD, these two milestones are the same day. So really, your first day that you show up to work in your retirement eligible position, that's your date of entry into Acera, and that's when you start earning service credit toward retirement. You're going to earn service credit all the way up till you stop working. Now, this chart, this milestone chart assumes that you're going straight from active work into retirement, at which point your last day of work is really, at probably 5 p.m. on your last day of work. That's when you stop earning service credit toward retirement. And then the next day you're retired. That's when you start drawing your retirement. So you're earning service credit during that entire time. Now, if you were to leave early and not retire yet, you would become what we call a deferred member. You'd be deferring your retirement to a later date. So there'd be an extra milestone here, which would be your termination date from your job. So you'd earn service credit all the way up until that termination date. And we actually will talk about that a little bit later. So you earn service credit while you work during your regular work hours. You also earn service credit during your earned leave times, earned vacation leave, sick leave, if you earn management leave, if you earn comp time, also called compensatory time. In your holidays and floating holidays, if you get floating holidays, all of those types of leave do not count against you for the purposes of calculating your amount of service credit. You're already earning service credit while you're out on that leave. Now, there are some types of time when you do not earn service credit. That's anytime you're on with leave without pay, you're not earning service credit. Also, if you purchase extra vacation, and let me know if you all are allowed to do that or not. But if you are allowed to purchase extra vacation when you're out on the purchased vacation, okay, you do not. So I'll just skip over that. Thanks, Julie. And anytime I'm saying something that doesn't apply to LARPD, feel free to jump in and let me know that doesn't apply. Okay, so forget about purchase vacation. Now, sold vacation, are you all allowed to sell vacation? I think you're also not allowed to sell vacation, if I recall correctly. Okay, you don't sell vacation either, so we don't have to worry about that one. Makes it easy. The last three bullet points, overtime, on-call time, standby time, you do not earn service credit during that time. Okay, so leave without pay, overtime, on-call time, standby time. You're not earning service credit. Okay, so, and I just had a thought. So let me kind of go out of order for a second. I was anticipating a discussion of in the second half of the presentation about how vacation affects the salary component. But now I'm realizing that since you all are not allowed to sell service credit, or I'm sorry, you're not allowed to sell vacation, then that whole discussion, we don't have to talk, we can skip over that. So I'll let you know that when I get there in the second half of the presentation. Okay, back to service credit. So because, like I said, the higher any of those three numbers are in the retirement formula, the higher your retirement allowance is going to be because it's a multiplication. That brings us to the topic of maximizing your amount of service credit in the formula. And one way to do that is if you have eligible time that is purchasable, you can purchase eligible time as service credit, and that will increase your amount of service credit in the retirement formula for you. So here is a list of the types of time that are eligible for you to purchase as service credit. The first category is called ineligible or non-covered service purchase. And in fact, the idea behind most of these bullet points is that if circumstances were slightly different, you would have been able to earn service credit for this type of time, but because circumstances were what they were, you were not. So that the employer and the law wants to make it, wants to make you whole, and so it gives you the opportunity to actually purchase that time as service credit if you so choose. Okay, so Under the subcategories under ineligible non-covered service purchase are part-time work, where you started out working part-time, and this is like plain old part-time, not working for under contract, not working for a temporary agency. That part-time work before your full-time retirement eligible position is purchasable once you become an SRM member. I don't know if you all use the county's temporary assignment pool. I would assume that you don't because you're not county employees, so we'll skip over that. Seasonal work, intermittent work, service as needed work, project work, per diem work, or other ineligible employment with LARPD. I'm not sure if LARPD hires people in any of those capacities, but if you do have that type of time that you did prior to your ASERA position, then that type of work would become purchasable once you are an ASERA member. Okay, there's no gap between your hire date and date of entry, so we'll skip over that. Unpaid medical leave. If you go out on unpaid medical leave, let's say that you get really sick and you are out for, let's say that you have a bunch of vacation leave and a bunch of sick leave, and you burn through all of that. And then you're out for another year on unpaid medical leave. And then you return, you get well, and you return to work. Well, that year of unpaid medical leave is purchasable. So you can go back and purchase that entire year's worth of service credit so that you don't lose out on that year where you were on unpaid medical leave. And this is for your medical conditions only. So this is not if you're out on unpaid leave when you're supporting a family member. And this is up to 1 year per instance of leave. So if you go out for a year on unpaid medical leave, you come back to work for a little bit, then you go out on another year of unpaid medical leave, you come back to work. Both of those periods are purchasable. What they are contingent on is you coming back to work. So once you come back to work, then they become purchasable. The same goes with state disability insurance leave and military leave during membership. Those are, when you come back to work, those are purchasable. Now, for the state disability insurance leave, often how that works is that you are on workers' comp. And so the workers' comp system where the state disability insurance system is paying you partially, and then your employer is paying you partially. For the part where you're getting a paycheck for your employer, you're actually earning service credit for that part of your time. Then for the part where the state is paying you, you're not earning service credit, but then later you can purchase that time. Okay, the last two bullet points in the main section that count toward vesting are redeposit. Is the first one is a redeposit of prior memberships. This is where you used to be an ASERA member in the past. You stopped working for your employer, and then you took a refund of your contribution account. So all of those employee contributions that you paid in the system, you said, I want a refund. I'll take my money with me. See you later. And then you come back to work for one of ASERA's participating employers, or you come back to work for your same participating employer, like LARPD, and you decide you want to redeposit that money that you took out to get all that service credit back that you had earned from during that first membership. Well, you can do that. It's called a redeposit of a prior membership. And the goal is to get all your service credit back. The last category is redeposit of community property. And this is when you get divorced or dissolve a state registered domestic partnership. Because California is a community property state, when you do get divorced or dissolve that state registered domestic partnership, your balance of your contribution account plus your balance of your contribution account is considered community property, as is the balance of your service credit. And so what often happens is in the settlement, the ex-spouse will get part of the contribution account and part of the service credit that goes along with that amount of contributions. Okay, so that means that you, as the member, have less service credit and less contributions in your account. Now, let's say that the ex-spouse, they get a separate account and they actually decide to take a refund of that account. They want that money. If they do that, we will send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that. And then you have the opportunity to redeposit the equivalent of the money that they took out to get your service credit back that they basically took from you. And that's called a redeposit of community property. The last category of eligible service credit purchases is if you used to work for another public agency in California but you are not eligible for their pension to collect a pension from their pension fund, whatever pension fund they use, you can buy that time as a Sarah service credit. And usually the reason that you're not eligible for the pension is because you took a refund of your contributions from their system. So you canceled your membership with their system. Let's say that you worked for East Bay Mud for 5 years. You could actually buy that if you quit working for East Bay Mud, now you're working for LARPD. As long as you take that contribution, you refund from their pension fund, you could buy that 5 years worth of time as a Sarah service credit. Okay, so now we come to a list of times that are not eligible for you to purchase service credit. So we can skip over the first one. Non-medical leave without pay is not eligible for you to purchase. So if you're just on straight leave without pay and it has nothing to do with a medical condition, that's not eligible for purchase. Any time where you worked under contract or for a temporary agency for your employer is not eligible for purchase. Additionally, if you are trying to purchase that other California prior public service from another agency, and you still have contributions on deposit with that other agency, you're going to have to take a refund before you can actually make the purchase. Take a refund of your contributions from their pension fund. Okay. How much will it cost you to make a service credit purchase if you currently have eligible time or if sometime in the future you have eligible time? Well, what it's going to cost you is whatever your employee contributions would have been had you worked that time. So for example, if you go out on unpaid medical leave for 6 months and you return to your job, had you been working for that 6 months and getting your paycheck for that 6 months, you would have been contributing to the Sarah's retirement fund with every one of those paychecks. So whatever that amount of money would have been had you worked for that 6 months, that's what it's going to cost you to make that service credit purchase for that 6 months worth of time, plus interest. You're going to have to pay the interest that money would have earned between then and now, because had you worked that 6 months, had you paid that money in the system during that time for that 6 months through each paycheck, we would have invested that money and that money would have earned interest. So if you make a service credit purchase immediately, maybe there's no interest. Maybe there wouldn't have been any time for that money to earn interest. So maybe you won't really owe any interest. But what happens is we post interest to all of our accounts twice a year at the end of June and end of December. So every time you pass one of those days and you don't make the service credit purchase, now you're going to owe interest on top of what the employee contribution part of the payment. So that the bottom line there is the longer you wait to purchase service credit, the more expensive it gets, because you're going to have to pay more and more interest that money would have earned had we invested it. Okay. How do you actually make a service credit purchase if you want to? Or alternate question, how do you find out if you want to make a service credit purchase? Like, how do you find out the cost? Well, you do the same thing for both. The answer to both questions is the same. You complete a purchase redeposit request. And in fact, this is old information. Don't log into our website anymore to do this. What you're going to want to do is go out to our forms page, because we have been slowly putting all of our forms into DocuSign, which is way easier. And so you're going to go to acera.org/forms and you click on the link. There's a button for the DocuSign form for purchase redeposit request. You press that button and you'll do the request in DocuSign, and it's fully electronic. It makes it so it's not a hassle, and then we'll receive that request. And then what we'll do, we'll receive the request, we'll do calculations, and we'll send you a letter in the mail telling you how much the service credit purchase is going to cost. And at that point, you can decide if you want to make the service credit purchase or how much of the service credit purchase you would like to make. And if you look at this list, going back a couple of slides, for all of the bullet points except for the 2 redeposits, you could actually purchase a portion of that time as your service credit purchase if you choose. If we tell you that the service credit purchase is going to be expensive and you're not really that thrilled about how expensive it's going to be, you could purchase like half of it if you want to, if that's all the money you have now. And then you could come back later and purchase the other half at some other point if you liked it, if you would like. That's true for everything except for the redeposit. The redeposits are all or none. You have to either redeposit the entire amount or none at all. One more thing I'll point out is that these types of purchases count toward vesting. So if you purchased a year of unpaid medical leave, that would help satisfy your requirement of 5 full-time years of service credit to get over the vesting requirement. The other California prior public service does not count toward vesting. Another thing I'll point out is the expense. For all of these ones that count toward vesting, the employer is your employer. And so they're going to pay the employer portion of you making the service credit. You're only paying the employee portion. For the other California agencies, your employer is not going to pay the employer portion. So you're going to be on the hook for that. That's why if you make these type of purchases, it counts double or triple because you're paying the employee portion and the employer portion. So these can be kind of pricey. But like I said, when you get the letter in the mail and we tell you how much it's going to cost, then you can decide whether you want to make the service credit purchase or not. If we have extra time at the end, I can tell you, and if somebody happens to have the question of how they decide whether or not they want to make the service credit purchase, I can tell you a little bit more about that. But you will have different payment options for making service credit purchases. Lump sum check on a post-tax basis, that is one option. Or you could roll over funds on a pre-tax basis if you have funds in another pre-tax retirement account. Or you could do payroll deductions. So we'll split up the cost of making the service credit purchase for you over time, and it will come directly out of your paycheck. So that makes it super easy for you. Or you can do any combination of the above. Like if you do have some money hanging out in like your checking account, you could write as a check, you could roll over some from a pre-tax account, and then the rest will split up for you through payroll deductions. Okay, any more questions about service credit or making service credit purchases before I move on to talking about the highest average monthly salary? Okay, seeing no questions, I will talk about the salary. Okay, so when you go to retire, we are going to need to do that retirement calculation for you. And if you recall, it has 3 factors: the age factor percentage, the years of service credit. We're also going to need to make this calculation of your highest average monthly salary. The service credit is pretty easy. It just comes right out of our database. Age factor percentage is easy. It comes right off a chart. The highest average monthly salary, we have to do this additional salary calculation to find an average. So what we do is and what the law tells us that we have to do is we have to determine this highest period of pay in your career, which is also known as your final compensation period. Okay, it's your highest period of consecutive pay from any point in your career. So for tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. Are you all paid biweekly or monthly? Biweekly. So it's going to be your highest, thank you, Julie. It's going to be your highest 26 biweekly pay periods for tiers 1 and 3. For tier 4, it's going to be your highest 78 biweekly pay periods. And these are consecutive pay periods. So essentially, for tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay that becomes your final compensation period. For tier 4, it's your highest 3 years of pay. And do you all have tier 4 members? I just want to double check on that. Okay, great. So for tier 4, it's your highest 3 years of consecutive pay. So what we do in order to do this calculation for the formula is we simply take your total pay during this highest year or highest 3 years, and we divide it by the number of months in the final compensation period to get a highest average monthly salary. It's a pretty basic calculation. So for tier 1 and 3, we divide by 12 months. For tier 4, we divide by 36 months. That gives us your highest average monthly salary. One more thing I'll point out is this is the highest consecutive, basically, year of pay or 3 years of pay, or that's if you're working full time during that entire time, or it's the equivalent of the highest 1 year of full-time pay or the highest 3 years of full-time pay. So for example, if you're in tier 4 and your last 6 years of work, you work half time, 50% time, what we'll do, and you're making your highest rate of pay in your entire career during that 6 years, we will take those 6 years of halftime pay and smash all those consecutive pay periods together to get the equivalent of 3 years of full-time pay. So working less than full-time doesn't count against you when we're calculating the highest average monthly salary. And it doesn't really count against you for the service credit part of the formula, except for the fact that you're earning service credit at a much slower rate. So if you were working half-time, you're earning half the amount of service credit in the time that you would work if you were working full time. Okay. So sticking with the highest average salary calculation topic, what types of pay go into this highest average salary calculation? Well, your base pay goes in, of course. And for all of these types of pay, we're talking about gross pay. We're looking at your gross pay before any deductions are taken out. Second bullet point are footnotes. So these are other pay codes. These are other types of pay that you may get. These may count. There are many, many other pay codes. So I can't tell you off the top of my head if you have one of these other types of pay code, these other types of pay, whether these count toward the salary calculation for the purposes of calculating your retirement or not, but you can look it up for yourself by going to our pay codes page at acera.org/paycodes, or you can just search for pay codes on our website. And there will be a PDF link there that will bring up the link for LARPD, and it'll have all the LARPD pay codes. And you just look for your pay code and look for your tier, and it'll say yes or no, whether it's in or out of this calculation or not. But one pay code I do know off the top of my head that does not count toward the salary calculation is overtime pay. Okay, those are the two types of pay that count for this. Because you all aren't allowed to sell vacation, that means that any compensation that you would receive for doing that is not going to count here either, and you're not going to get any vacation pay that you would get cashed out for, because you're not allowed to sell vacation. That precludes us from counting any of your cash out pay for that as well. So you can forget about these two bullet points. Okay, so for the tier 4 people, I just want to point out that there is this limit to your benefit payments that is written into the law that created tier 4, that the state Pension Reform Act that was passed in 2012 that took effect on January 1st, 2013. So as a general member, if you retired in 2022, the amount of annual salary that we would be able to use for that salary calculation would be capped at a certain level. And for 2022, it's $134,974 if you were to retire in 2022. Now, this limit goes up every year. So if you check back to this page every year, you'll see this limit go up and up and up. And we'll go by whatever that limit, when we go to calculate retirement, we'll go by whatever limit that is for you. Another couple of details about how this works is that if you were to earn this much in a year right now and earn more than this in a year right now, what you would see happen in your paycheck is as soon as you earned more than this for the year, we would actually stop taking retirement contributions out of your paycheck for the rest of the year, because we can't use more than the salary to calculate your retirement. So we're not going to make you pay for retirement contributions for the rest of the year. And then when the year starts over, your retirement contributions would kick back in. And then maybe you hit the cap the next year again, and the same thing would happen. And one advantage of that, I mean, the disadvantage is that, your salary is going to be capped for the purposes of calculating your retirement. That's just the way the state wanted it to work. The advantage of it, though, is it gives you more money in your paycheck to save in your 457B account, so that you can save more toward retirement. There's more on that topic at our acera.org/limits webpage. Okay, so to give you an example of the entire retirement formula all put together, here is a Tier 4 member example. So this Tier 4 member retires at age 65 after earning 25 years of service credit. So for Tier 4, at age 65, their age factor percentage is 2.30%. They also earn 25 years exactly of service credit. And for this example, their highest average monthly salary was $6,000 per month. We multiply these three numbers together, and that tells us their monthly retirement allowance is $3,450 every month for the rest of their life. So that's the whole thing put together. A couple of things I want to point out here. One is there's a lot of decimal places on this years of service credit. In this example, it's exactly 25 years, but that's not how it's going to be for you, most likely. You will earn service credit, like I said, all the way up until you, if you quit, the time that you leave work is 5 o'clock, generally, it'll be all the way up to 5 o'clock on your last day of work. You'll earn service credit. So there will be a lot of decimal places here for you. If you look at your service credit number right now in your account on our website, there will be a lot of decimal places after your years of service, and you're going to get credit for all those fractions of a day in the retirement calculation. Another thing that I want to point out is going back to the concept of salary replacement for the purposes of planning your retirement income after retirement. This is kind of a good concept to be familiar with. The idea is that your Acera pension, your Social Security, and your personal savings are replacing the salary that you're earning while you were employed. And like I said, kind of the salary replacement number that is the sweet spot is 70 to 80% in order to maintain your standard of living. So in this example, this person is achieving 57.5% salary replacement from their Acera pension alone, which is really good because their Social Security amount will probably get them the rest of the way up to the 70 or 80%. So this person is in good shape. And we'll talk more details about that in just a few minutes. But all you do, all I did to figure out the salary replacement was multiply the age factor percentage times the years of service. They're receiving 2.30% of their highest average monthly salary for each one of those 25 years of service, and that equals 57.5%. Okay, so let's talk about getting a pension estimate. That's in general how the retirement system works, and how we, that's, a general example of an estimated retirement allowance, but you're probably going to want to get a specific estimate of your future retirement allowance. So I'll show you two ways to do that. One is kind of a quick ballpark way that shows you what salary replacement is by using one of these salary replacement charts. So all you do is go to acera.org/planning, or I will show you how to navigate to that on our website. Okay, so here is Acera's website. Okay, so you just go under members. It's the third one down, planning your future retirement income. And step one is getting an estimate. So there's 4 options under getting an estimate. I'm going to show you 2 options right now. But the first 2 options are the ones I'm going to show you. And the first one is using an income replacement chart. So what I'm going to do is click on General Tier 4. And it will show me this income replacement chart. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. All you do is you think about your retirement scenario. Think about the future. Think about how old you are how old you are right now, how many more years you're thinking of possibly working. And then, so you think, I'm 40 right now, I'll work till I'm 60. That's 20 more years of service credit. Think about how many years you already have. Maybe you already worked 10 years. So that's 30 years of service credit at age 60. So what you would do is you would come out to here, you would go down to 30 years of service credit, and you would go over to age 60. You find where they intersect, and that says 54%. So in that scenario, with 30 years of service credit, retiring at age 60, you would have achieved 54% income replacement. Now, one feature of this chart is you can then see what happens if you go diagonally in either direction. So let's say that I'm thinking, well, 30 years, that sounds like kind of a lot of years to work. 60 kind of sounds like kind of old to retire in my imagined hypothetical scenario. So let me dial it back a year. Well, you would just go diagonally. You'd go up and one over. If you retired at age 59 with 29 years of service credit, you would achieve 49.30% income replacement. Or if you go in the opposite direction, what happens if I work another year? You would achieve 58.90% income replacement. So you just see where you intersect, and then you go diagonally, and you can see what the effect of working a year less or working a year more, or just keep going diagonally down the chart would be in terms of your income replacement. Okay, so that's the kind of first way to get a ballpark estimate of your future pension benefit. I mean, you could even, let's say that it's telling you that you're going to achieve 50% income replacement. Well, you can think about your monthly salary right now. Let's say it's $5,000 a month. And you can think, oh, well, 50% would be about half of that. So my retirement allowance would be about $25,000. This is like a super quick ballpark way to do it. Let me show you a precision way to do it. Go to our website, and these are screenshots just because it's more efficient to do it that way. You click on the login button in the top corner. You go into Web Member Services, which is our member portal for you. So this is your Acera account. If you've never done this before, you have to create an account first. But once you do that, once you get in there, you'll find that your pension data is sitting in there waiting for you. The first screen you'll see is an account summary, and it will tell you some things about your membership with Acera, like your employment date, your entry date, whether you have reciprocity or not, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, your tier. It will tell you how much service credit you've already earned, how much you've contributed to the system. So there's a lot of info in there for you. It's good to check out that data, see if anything looks weird, see if anything doesn't look right. If it doesn't, then you give us a call and say, this looks weird, I don't think this is right, and we'll look into it for you. So it's good to catch those things earlier rather than later. But when you're estimating a benefit, what you do is you click on Estimate a Benefit, and you come to the benefit estimator. So then what you're going to have to do for this benefit estimator is think of a more specific retirement scenario. You're going to have to come up with some dates. So if it's way in the future, you're going to retire 10 years, 15 years from now, that's the retirement scenario that you want to get an estimate for. You just kind of pick random dates like January 1st of 2042 or whatever. What you will need to do is choose a separation date and a projected retirement date. And the separation date is your last day of work. Projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. If you plan on going straight from active work into retirement, these would just be 2 consecutive dates. The projected retirement date has to be at least a day after the separation date. In a different scenario, if you plan on stopping work and not retiring yet, there might be a big gap between these dates. So you could retire later out of deferred status. So you pick your scenario that you want to get an estimate for. You hit calculate. I'll zoom in just to show it to you a little bit more closely. Once you hit calculate, it will project an amount of service credit you will have earned in this scenario that you're doing. It will also do a salary projection for you based on your current salary. If your retirement date is, years in advance that you're doing the scenario for, then it's basically taking your current last paycheck that it has on file for you and filling in all of the pay periods, consecutive pay periods it needs to do this calculation. So it's not projecting future cost of living increases or raises. This is based on your current salary. You do have the opportunity to override both of those numbers. If you wanted to see what the effect of purchasing a certain amount of service credit would be, what you would do, let's say you wanted to purchase 6 months worth of service credit, you would convert that to years. So 6 months is a half a year, 0.5, and you'd add that to this number, put that new total in the override service credit field, and that would tell you what it would, how much your retirement allowance would go up were you to add 6 months of service credit to it. The same thing goes for salary. If you are curious about, you want to add, like inflationary amounts to the salary, you could do that if you enjoy math and put that in the override salary field. If you want a nice conservative estimate where you're not overestimating and not creating an expectation that is not going to match reality, you could just leave these two override fields blank. Don't put anything in add hours of cash vacation compensation, leave that blank. You can put in beneficiary information here and you hit get estimate. And this is your retirement benefit estimate. This is going to look a little different really soon. We're about to relaunch this with a new design, but it'll have all the same stuff on it. What it is showing you up here are some of your pieces of member data and then the information it's using to calculate the estimate, and then zooming in, this is your retirement benefit estimate. And for right now, especially if you're a new member or if you're in your mid-career, you're just going to look at this number right here, the unmodified option, because this pays the highest retirement allowance of any of the other options. And you don't really have to understand what the other options are about until you're getting ready to retire. They all pay less than the unmodified option. And my mouse actually just ran out of batteries and froze. Hang on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So this is your kind of general retirement allowance estimate. Okay, moving right along. Let's talk about understanding your retirement eligibility. This is actually a pretty quick topic because this is pretty easy. We're talking about this pension milestone right here, the retirement eligibility date. I said it was a combination of age and years of service credit. Here are those combinations. So for tiers 1 and 3, and I'll do tier 4 in just a minute, to become eligible for retirement, you have to reach a combination of one of these 3 options. Option number 1 is you have to be at least age 50, and you have to have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have to have at least 10 years of membership with Acera. If you are planning on working straight into retirement, you can kind of think of this as having at least 10 years of service credit and being over age 50, and then you're eligible to retire. But if you are planning on leaving employment before you reach the 10 years, like let's say you work 7 years and you're done working and you you go ahead and quit, all you would need to do is wait in deferred status for an additional 3 years until you reach 10 years of membership with Acera and be over age 50, and then you could retire. Okay, option number 2. As a general member, you can have 30 years of service credit and retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option number 3 is you can have any amount of service credit, and if you are age 70 or older, you can retire, even if it's less than the 5 years of service credit you need under option 1. You can just, if you had 4 years of service credit and you're age 70, you can just go ahead and retire. So those are your 3 options for retirement. I think probably the vast majority of people retire under option 1. Okay, if you're in tier 4, You have two options for achieving retirement eligibility. You have to be at least age 52, and you have to have 5 years of service credit. You don't have to do that 10 years of membership thing that tiers 1 and 3 do. So you can forget about that. Age 52, at least 5 years of service credit, you can retire. Or you can be age 70 and retire with any amount of service credit. So that is how you achieve retirement eligibility. You may already be eligible to retire and didn't know it. Okay, so that was a quick topic. Next topic, understanding additional benefits. We offer, in addition to that lifetime retirement allowance, we offer medical, dental, vision, and other non-guaranteed benefits. There's also disability retirement. This is considered a vested, part of the vested set of benefits. If you become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, you can apply for disability retirement. And even if you're already eligible for the regular retirement, you can go ahead and you can't work anymore. You can go ahead and do the regular retirement and then still apply for the disability retirement and be awarded it later. Also, death benefits. We do have death benefit options. Let me talk about these medical, dental, and vision and other non-guaranteed benefits really quickly. I'm just going to touch on these right now in the second half of the presentation when I'm speaking to the people who are getting ready to retire or simply curious about the details. We'll dive deep into this. But for right now, I just want to orient you to the idea that these benefits exist. When you retire, you can enroll in medical, dental, vision plan, and there are subsidies to help you pay for those plans. There's 3 levels of the medical subsidy, which is known as the monthly medical allowance. There's a dental and vision subsidy. Once you're Medicare eligible, there's a Medicare subsidy that pays the cost of being enrolled in Medicare through the federal government. There's also a supplemental cost of living adjustment. The main thing that I want to do right now for those new employees and mid-career members is tell you about the years of a service credit it takes to qualify for these non-guaranteed benefits, because these are extra benefits that are paid based on this reserve fund and the sustainability of this reserve fund that our Board of Retirement runs. So they choose what the rules are and what the benefits are. And their rules are that you need a certain amount of ACERA service credit to qualify. And they choose the rules based on keeping that fund sustainable because they want to keep being able to offer these benefits in the future. So you can see that for the supplemental cost of living adjustment, there's no minimum amount of years of service credit to qualify. For all of the other non-guaranteed benefits, they all start at 10 years of ACERA service credit. So I think this is kind of an important point to drive home, because maybe you've been working here for 9.5 years and you're wondering if you should go do something else with your life. Well, maybe you want to consider hanging around for another 6 months till you get over that 10-year mark, because the half of the monthly medical allowance subsidy and the full dental and vision and Medicare subsidies will represent a lot of additional money in retirement that you get on top of your retirement allowance. And the same goes for if you're thinking about quitting or retiring right before 15 years or 20 years. Those are also milestones here to consider when you're thinking about these additional benefits. So I'll just go ahead and put on another milestone on the chart. Healthcare subsidies is to think about at the 10-year mark. So it's definitely something to consider. Next topic, we'll talk about the death benefits and designating your beneficiary or beneficiaries and keeping them current. Who is your beneficiary? That word just means someone who gets benefits. So your ACERA beneficiary is the person that you designate to get your ACERA death benefits. In the second half of the presentation, I will talk about the set of death benefits your beneficiaries will be eligible for those people who die post-retirement. So you retire and then you die later. Right now, what I'm going to talk about is should you die before you retire? So what are the set of benefits that would be offered to your beneficiaries should you die before you retire? If you should die before you retire and you're not yet vested in the system, what your beneficiary would receive is a return of basically a refund of your contribution account. a return of your employee contributions plus any interest that we've posted there. Additionally, they would receive 1 month of salary for each year of service, up to 6 months worth of salary. So if you worked for 4 years before you died, they would receive 4 months of your salary in addition to the refund of your contribution account. This is if you die and you're still actively working for your employer. And I'm not saying that you have to die at work. I'm just saying that you're still in active status with your employer. Now, if you are in active status with your employer and you are vested, then your beneficiaries get a choice. What the option that I just told you is option number 1. So that's the same. Refund of the contribution account plus the 1 month of salary for each year of service up to 6 months. Option 2 would be a monthly survivor's allowance, and this is to spouse and state registered domestic partner only. So instead of this return, instead of option 1, what they could do is they could take a lifetime allowance for the rest of their life. And the way that works is we'd basically calculate your retirement up to the date of your death, and they get 60% of what your retirement would have been. Option number 3 is a hybrid of options 1 and 2. They get a lump sum payment of 1 month of salary for each year of your service up to 6 months, and then a reduced monthly survivor's allowance. And these are lifetime allowances. Okay, now that's if you die when you're in active status with your employer. If you quit or are terminated from your employment for whatever reason, your employment terminates, and you haven't retired yet, we call you a deferred member. You're kind of in an in-between where you're not actively working, but you haven't retired. So if you were to die in that instance, your beneficiaries would receive a return of your contribution account, a refund of your contribution account. Okay, there's more info on this on our death benefits page, sarah.org/death. One point that I do want to drive home is, in order for us to pay the correct beneficiary, you will have had to have designated the correct beneficiary. You had the opportunity to do that when you joined Sarah. You have the opportunity to do that at any time you want on our beneficiary designation form. Go ahead and check your beneficiaries. Log into your account. Once you log in there, go to nominated beneficiary. Look at the nominated beneficiary page. Make sure that those people are correct. If you see your spouse in there from 3 spouses ago, you're going to want to go ahead and renominate your beneficiary so that it is whoever you currently want us to pay out. So you don't want us to pay the wrong beneficiary, and we will pay out whoever is designated as your beneficiary, no matter what your will says. This supersedes a will. You can designate your beneficiary today, redesignate your beneficiary today if you wanted to by going to sarah.org/forms. And you turn it into us today, your beneficiary is redesignated as of today. So I'm noticing that I underestimated how long it would take me to get through the new employee / mid-career stuff. So I probably have another 20 minutes or so of information, just doing a time check on that, just to let you all know. Okay, so let me talk about understanding career planning options. This is, when I say career planning options, I mean leaving your employer. So at some point, you're not going to be working for LARPD anymore at some point in the future. Option number 1, of course, is to work straight into retirement and retire. Okay, so we already talked a lot about that. Let's kind of, I can just tell you really quickly, you will convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit, and you can go work anywhere else if you want to, and you can get your Sarah retirement at the same time. Let's talk about what happens if you don't want to retire immediately after you stop working. What are your options? So we're terminating before you're ready to retire. And I'll add another milestone to the pension milestone chart, because you're not working straight into retirement. There's going to be a termination date, and then you're going to retire later, perhaps. You're going to have 3 options. I'll call them options A, B, and C to not get confused with the other 2 options. So if you stop working before retirement and you don't immediately retire, you have options A, B, and C. Option A is to become a deferred member. You leave your contributions on deposit with a SARA, and that means you're still an SARA member because you're a deferred SARA member. We will continue to pay interest to your contribution account. Interest continues to accumulate. And in fact, there's no negative interest. And what people ask me what I mean by that, it means that the balance of your contribution account never goes down. If we experience an investment loss, we do not take money out of your account like you would experience with pretty much any other type of investment account. So if we experience an investment loss, that the hit comes out of the general fund, we don't reduce the balance of your account. And you can retire later out of deferred status. You can, instead of retiring later, you could decide that you want to come back to work and earn more credit toward retirement. You could do that because you haven't retired yet. Or alternatively, you could become a deferred member now, and then later on you decide you want to take a refund of the balance of your contribution account. You could do that. Okay. So option B is establishing reciprocity. Reciprocity is where you're linking multiple public retirement systems together. So let's say that you see another job that looks good in another California public agency, such as another city, a California state job, another county in California. I think we have reciprocity with all the counties in California. I should add that to the list. The full list is at asera.org/reciprocity. If you go and get one of those jobs, they're going to have another pension system, but you can link the pension systems together, and it prevents you from having to start over from scratch in earning your retirement, because the service credit that you earn in all of the systems combined is used for the vesting and retirement eligibility requirements. So the 5 years or the 10 years of membership thing, we look at all of the linked systems combined when we're determining whether you're vested or whether you're eligible to retire. Also, the average salary that you earn under any of the reciprocal systems is used by all of the systems when you go to retire. So like if you're making $20 an hour here, you see a job over in Marin County making $30 an hour and you want to work over there, you go over there and work for 10 years. And let's say that you worked here for 15 years. When you go to retire, where each system is going to do a calculation, but we're both going to use for your highest average monthly salary, the highest salary that you earned under either of those systems. So it gives you a boost in the old system that you left. Additionally, if you're in tiers 1 or 3, it keeps your contribution rate lower. In order to qualify for reciprocity, you have to leave your contributions on deposit with all of the systems you're linking together. There can be no more than a 180-day gap from when you terminate your first job and you enter the next retirement system, which is about 6 months. You don't want to have overlapping service. Don't go on a 5-week vacation here for this job and immediately start working another job while you're still in vacation status here. Just go ahead and quit this job. They'll cash you out for your vacation anyway. And then you start the other job. Don't have overlapping service, or you can't establish reciprocity. You also have to retire from all of the systems on the same day. That's options A and B. Option C is you can take a refund of your contribution account if you stop working here. If you want a lump sum payment, so you're not trying to roll it over into another type of pre-tax retirement account, you'll probably lose a third of your money to taxes and penalties right off the bat. Or you could roll over your money into another pre-tax retirement account. Refunds take time. It's not instantaneous. What you're saying is, I don't want to be an SARA member anymore. I don't want a retirement allowance. I don't want access to those non-guaranteed benefits. I don't want my beneficiaries to have access to the death benefits. I'm taking a refund. Okay. So that's your option. Just to give you a little pitch for not doing that, I did mention, like, you can roll over that money into another pre-tax retirement account, but with the kind of earnings that we earn here, we expect to earn 7% per year, and we tend to earn somewhere between 7 and 8% over the last 30 years per year. Going back to option A, I just want to highlight this idea. If you leave your money on deposit with SARA, you're going to keep earning that type of interest with no risk. there's no risk. We're not going to take any money out of your account. So I doubt like you would have to be an ace investment manager to figure out where to put your money where you have no risk, where you can earn, 7.5% a year. So that, I think that alone is just like reason enough to leave the money with the Sarah. But that's my little pitch. Oh, and also if you don't take a refund and you retire from a Sarah and start drawing the retirement benefits, like I told you at the beginning of the presentation, we're going to give you all the money back anyway in the first 3 to 5 years of retirement payments. And then everything after that is basically pure profit for you. So there's not a lot of situations where it's advantageous to take a refund, but people still do it. And you could run the math. You're smart. You run the math and you decide that it's advantageous for you, that it is your right. It's your money to do with what you want with it. Okay, let's talk about making a retirement planning picture. So we're going to revisit this slide where we're looking at your potential retirement income to maintain your standard of living. And this is the last big topic that I have for the new employee and mid-career information. Okay, so we're looking at this picture of your retirement income. And our goal is to help you maintain your standard of living in retirement that you were enjoying before retirement. So like I said earlier, you're going to have various sources of income in retirement. One of those is going to be your Sarah monthly pension. Another will be Social Security. And anything beyond that is savings and investments. Okay. And your goal is to get pointed in this direction of having 70 to 80% salary replacement through the combination of these three sources of income. Okay. So what we can do now, because your retirement is in the future, is we can actually take a little peek into the future. We can do a little estimating. We can get an estimate of your Sarah monthly pension. We can get an estimate of Social Security. And that will tell us how close we're getting to 70 to 80%. And then we can do a little estimate to see how much additional savings you might want to save in order to really be pointed in this direction of 70 to 80% income replacement. So let me show you how to do that. Step one, get some estimates. So you go on our website, you do the benefit estimator, you get an Sarah estimate. Step one, part B, get a Social Security estimate. So you go to their site for the Sarah estimate. These are screenshots of the benefit estimator. You get the benefit estimate. And maybe you get out some scratch paper and you take that number. Let's see, it's $2,200 and it's about age 52, about maybe $2,300. Age 62. And you write that on your scratch piece of paper. Then you go out to Social Security, so ssa.gov/estimator. They're going to take you through, they're going to ask you questions. You log into your account there. They ask you questions, kind of similar to a Sarah's account. And they're going to give you an estimate that looks kind of like this. They'll show you at different ages that you can start taking Social Security benefits, what the estimated benefits would be. Okay. So let's stick with that age 62, just because that's what we did for the Sarah estimate. So it's 17. You can scratch them all out on your paper, but we'll look at 1,700 at age 62 and 2,300 at age 62 for the Sarah estimate. So now we have an idea. We've filled in. Let me go back to the equation. We filled in these two. Okay, now we're just looking at this last line because we've peeked in the future with these first two categories. So now we want to do a peek in the future of the third category. What I recommend is rather than doing it on paper, there are all these retirement calculators out there that will help you do this way easier than you could do on your own. There are some links out on our website, and I recommend trying a few of them because they'll all give you a different kind of answer. I'll actually show you the Vanguard calculator right now. Here's a screenshot of it, but let me actually just go over to our website and I'll just do it for you real fast. Just do a little example. Okay, here's our website. So we're going to stick to that same page, planning your future retirement income. It's the third option under members. And this whole page is actually a detailed step-by-step version of what I'm kind of giving you a summary version of. So you can do these steps at your own leisure. So I'm going to come down to the step where we are using the calculators, and I'm going to click on the Vanguard calculator link button. Okay, so let's see. I'll start putting in some numbers in here. So I'm age 62 in this hypothetical. Wait, let's say that I'm 35 now. And let's say that I'm retiring at age 62. And let's say that I make, let's say 70,000 a year. Okay. This is a field for how much I save annually. Let's say for the purposes of this, I don't save any. I haven't figured that out yet. So I save 0. And per year. And let's say I've saved 0 already. If you do save annually, you can put that in here. And if you do have some savings tucked away already, you could put that in here. But I'm going to leave it at 0. Let's say that I'm going to get pointed at the 80% income replacement. Okay. So I want to achieve, as retirement income, 80% of what I was making as I was working. Okay, now this number here, expected annual return, this is purely up to you. I recommend a number in between 2% and 7% to be conservative. 2 is very conservative. There's many places you can park your money where you can just get 2% with very little risk. But you end up kind of losing out over time to inflation and kind of loss of compound interest. So I'm just going to pick 6% here to be kind of on the conservative side. I said earlier, Sarah expects we're going to earn 7% a year, and we're actually kind of on the conservative side as well. Okay, so then I'm going to open this right here, additional income sources. So I estimated, Social Security said that if I retire at age 62, they're going to pay me $1,700 per month. And then my Sarah retirement is going to be $2,300 at age 62. So this is where you put in a monthly pension. If you have additional pensions, you can add those in here as well. I'm going to hit calculate. It's going to show me a graph. And this graph on the left is showing me how much savings, like how much I'm already going to have in retirement. The graph on the right is showing how much I will actually need to maintain my standard of living to reach that 80% income replacement mark. So you can see there's a gap here. This bar needs to be as high as this bar is, or else I'm not going to be able to maintain my standard of living. So then what I can do is I can go back up and I can recalculate this, and I can see what the effect would be if I saved some money every year. Let's say I start small and I save $400 per year, which is going to represent 0.6% of my salary. It's not a ton, but let's just see what effect it has on the graph. Okay, it barely moved. Okay, let's see what happens if I do $6,000 per year. Hit recalculate. Okay, I overshot it. So I don't need to save $6,000 per year to achieve 80% income replacement. Let's go down to 4,000. Let's see what happens there. Okay, I'm almost there. There's a little bit of a gap. I'm at basically 4,500 here and 4,600 over here. So let me see what happens if I do 4,400. Okay, almost 4,500. Almost, let me see, 4,600. And there we go. That's almost at 4,600. I mean, you can play around with it and get it pretty even. What this is saying is that I only need to save in my scenario here, where I'm going to work another, almost 25 years, 27 years. I only need to save 6.6% of my salary and invest it somewhere that earns 6% in order to achieve that 80% income replacement, because Most of my income replacement is coming from my pension and Social Security. That's what the two biggest bars here. And we were just filling in this gap here with extra savings. Um, so 4,600, maybe that sounds like a lot. Let me see what that equals out to over 26 pay periods. $177. So if I could find $177 additional, I could get pointed in the direction of achieving 80% income replacement by the time I retire. And that's kind of the bottom line here is that what I'm trying to tell you is you don't need to, like, 80% income replacement sounds like a lot now. Like, how am I going to do that? But you have the powerful tool of your SARE pension. You have the powerful tool of Social Security that will probably take you most of the way. So you just need to fill in the gap. And if maybe you can't afford whatever, I mean, the 177 is in that calculation, whatever it tells you, maybe you can't find $177 per paycheck. So maybe you start smaller. Maybe it's $50 that you put away each paycheck. Or, maybe you do 50 and you realize you didn't even notice it was gone. So you can crank it up a little bit over time. And maybe you do crank it up to the point where you can get that 177 or whatever it is for you when you go to calculate it. You just want to get pointed in this direction of the 70 to 80% income replacement. And then come back 6 months later, a year later, do the calculator again. See what new number it tells you. Maybe it says you should save a little more. So you save a little more. Then you come back a year later, it says, oh, you're saving too much, save a little less. So you crank it down a little bit if you want. And so what you will find is that over time, once you get to retirement, you will be in the neighborhood of the 70 to 80% income replacement because you got pointed in that direction toward the beginning. Regarding where to save your money, you probably will, I mean, it's up to you, but you can save your money somewhere that earns interest. And interest is simply earning money because you're loaning out your money. Like you're buying a stock, so you're loaning them. You buy Apple stock, so you're basically loaning your money to Apple. And if their endeavors go well, they pay you a dividend, and so you earn interest on that. I don't recommend buying individual stocks; it's super dangerous. But if you do put your money somewhere that earns interest, what that does is it helps you beat inflation, which is around 3% per year on average if you look at long periods of time. I know sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. It also helps you earn more through the power of compound interest. If you look at a compound interest graph, it always accelerates. So you earn money on your money. And then the next time around, you earn money on the money that you earned the first time around. So you're earning money on your money on your money on your money that you're earning, and that's why compound interest graphs always accelerate like this. And the longer you leave your money invested through the power of compound interest, you earn more and more money over time. Now, of course, the caveat is that you need to be cautious. You are solely responsible for the risk that you take with your extra savings. There's no risk with a SARA. There's no risk for Social Security. The only risk is, where you put your money over time. And in general, the higher the financial risk, or the higher the potential return, the higher the risk is what they say. One way that you can really lower your risk to manageable levels, and you can choose the amount of risk that you want, is to put your money in the 457B deferred compensation plan. This is run through the county, or you all might have a different administrator, but you all as government employees have access to a 457B plan to save additional money. And it's called deferred compensation because you're deferring compensation that you would receive now into your bank account in your paycheck. You're saving it for later. In fact, it comes out of your check before taxes are taken out, and it gets diverted into your 457B account, and it lowers your tax liability. So you don't pay taxes on that money right now. and you pay less taxes that year because you actually made less taxable income that year. There is a max contribution that you can put to your 457B account every year, but it's actually pretty high. You could put in $20,500 for 2022, which is $788 per pay period. So there's a good amount that you can park in the 457B plan. And what you do is you you open an account there. The minimum to open the account is $20 per month. And then, so it's not that you don't need to do that much to first open the account. Then once you get in there, it's all, a digital account. You can decide it, and there's different calculators in there that will help you decide. You don't have to be an investment expert. It helps you decide where you want your 457B money to be invested. And then after that, it's all professionally invested. And what happens is over long periods of time, when people say the market always increases, that has been the history of the market, is that it has always increased over long periods of time. And when I say long periods, I'm talking 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years. Over that long period of time, the market tends to go up, and you tend to be able to take advantage of the power of compound interest through diversified investments like you would find in the deferred compensation plan. There's nothing that's going to be, like, as far as I know, super dangerous and super risky in the deferred compensation account. I could be wrong, but you're not going to be buying individual stocks in there. It's all like super diversified index funds in there, where it's investing your money across like 500 different stocks. We do have, I'm kind of out of time on this section, so I won't go into detail. If you did happen to max out your 457B account, or you're not interested in saving money there, we do have a list out on, and this is a summary of that list, out on that Planning Your Future Retirement page, of different places that are actually pretty low risk, but the potential to not earn very much interest. Probably most of these you're going to earn less than 2%. But there is a description of where else you can park your money if you're not interested in the 457B plan. Do your own research. There's lots of places to do your research out on the internet, especially places like NerdWallet and Investopedia. And again, you're solely responsible for the investment risk you take on. If you do put your money, even $20 a month, in the 457B plan, you get to meet with a financial planner for free as many times as you want. So that's amazing. That's an amazing benefit of opening the 457B account. And then there's, like I said, there's an expanded article on what I just went through at acera.org/planning. So if you want to keep tabs on what's happening with Acera, subscribe to our news. We hardly send out any news, maybe a couple of times a year. acera.org/subscribe. It comes to your email inbox. And go ahead and start that 457B account. If you have any questions at any time, we have a call center that is there 5 days a week to answer your questions. Just dial 510-628-3000. And they're experts on the pension system. So this is the point for the new employees and mid-career employees, if you're going to duck out after this, that I just want to wish you a fulfilling career on behalf of Acera and Acera's board. So thanks for spending this time with me and learning about your powerful pension benefits.
Mike, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, welcome to part 2. So we'll talk about the details that you might want to know leading up to retirement. Okay, first topic on the checklist. We'll talk about what happens to your unused sick leave. So this is under the heading of service credit. This will count toward additional service credit. So what we will do, if you go straight from active work into retirement, is we will convert your sick leave to service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. So when I say going from active work into retirement, what I mean is that your last day on payroll, basically, another way to say it is your last day in active pay status is the day before your first day of retirement. Another way to say it is your retirement date is the next day after your last day on payroll. That means there's no gap here. That means you're going straight into retirement. And if you do that, we will convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit, which basically means you get half of your sick leave as service credit, up to a cap. And the cap is in your memorandum of understanding. So you would have to see what the cap is in your MOU. And so we will convert the sick leave up to that cap on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. So yours, Julie is saying yours is 84 calendar days. 84 calendar days of sick leave. Okay, so that would equal 42 days of extra service credit, if I am not mistaken. So that means that, imagine that this says 84 days of sick leave. We divide it by 2. That means you get 42 days of service credit. Now, that's, like Julie said, it's calendar days, right? But that you're getting of the sick leave. But for the service credit, you don't work the full calendar, you work work days. So you're going to get 42 days of service credit, of work days of service credit, which would be, what is that, about 8 weeks worth of additional service credit. That is if you have up to or over the 84 days of sick leave. If you have under, then whatever you have on the books is what we will convert. If you had 50 days of sick leave on the books, you'd get 25 extra days of service credit, so on and so forth. Okay, so because you all are not allowed to sell vacation, we can skip over this entire topic. So let me just, the fact that you can't sell vacation means that the amount of vacation cash out we can include in your salary calculation is 0, basically. Okay, let me talk about some additional details about limits on your monthly benefit payments. Okay, one limit is that we cannot pay more as your retirement allowance than whatever we calculate your highest average monthly salary limit to be. Another way to say it is you can't make more in retirement than you were making while you were working, essentially. Not very many people hit this limit because you have to work like 35 or 40 or 45 years, depending on your age, to hit this limit. But it is a limit. But the good news is that if you do hit the limit, that means you're achieving 100% income replacement. So you're making the same in retirement as you were when you were working. There are 2 other limits here that apply to people that have high salaries. So I'm not going to spend any time on those because there's hardly any people that hit these limits. But if you do have a high salary, you're going to want to read the info on this slide. And then there's a little more info on our webpage about acera.org/limits. Because sometimes you hit the limit, but then there's a replacement plan. Sometimes it doesn't apply to you based on when you entered Acera. So you're going to want to read the details of that. And then we already went over this Tier 4 highest average monthly salary limit. Let's see, there's a question. Oh, you all don't pay into Social Security. So what do you mean you're in the 120% compensation limit?
Hey, Mike, our
Hey.
compensation limit is not the 134,974. It is for 2020, let's see, 2022, it is 161,969.
Wow, nobody ever told me that. Thank you for telling me that.
You're welcome.
So you all have,
We're the non-integrated members.
and you don't pay into Social Security.
Correct.
Yeah. I I I can't believe my colleagues never informed me of this, and I've been here 14 years. So we need to put this out on our website. We need to put your salary limit out on that limits page, and we need to mention the Social Security non-integration. So then that whole thing that I was talking about with retirement planning on the first half, you can, I mean, and I'll just forget everything I said about Social Security. It'll just be, pension and savings.
For
So
those
thanks
who
for
worked
the.
in, if people worked in a job before they came to LARPD and paid into Social Security, they do get, it's part of the whole windfall or whatever it's called, can't remember. But they do get a percentage of their Social Security that they paid into, but not the full amount because it's being supplemented by the pension where they didn't pay into Social Security.
Okay. I think we need to put that info out on our website as well, because I'm not tuned into that either. But that is correct. If they had previous Social Security credit, then they would get to take advantage of Social Security. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to skip over this. This is a screenshot from a piece of the retirement planning worksheet that usually goes along with our pre-retirement seminar. I think you may have all gotten a link or copies of that. You can feel free to fill that out. I mean, you can go and I'll actually show you where to get it if you don't have it. It's if you go back to our website and you go under news and events, retirement planning seminars, under our pre-retirement webinar, that's where you find the retirement planning worksheet. And this is kind of whenever I do the retirement planning seminar, like the full thing, I will have screenshots of these sections of it, because you can kind of like fill in what you learn here about yourself, about your own career and your own pension numbers. And so you can feel free to do this after the presentation. Like if you, and it's kind of a good exercise to do, because it's kind of a long presentation. There's a lot of information. And so if you want kind of a takeaway later to remember what the numbers were that you learned, you can, kind of find them on here. But it's purely optional. One of the main reasons to do the worksheet is because there are these sections about the whole back page is about calculating vacation for like how much can be included in salary. But since that doesn't apply to you all, then you don't even have to worry about that. And one advantage of that is that stuff is complicated and annoying, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so I do have slides here about getting a benefit estimate, but I did already show this to you. There may be some additional details here that I will want to point out. Let me see if there's anything new from the first half. It's kind of the same slides that you already saw. Okay, this is more vacation stuff. Okay, yeah, that stuff wasn't really that applicable. Okay, so I showed you in the first half of the presentation I showed you two ways to get a retirement benefit estimate. There was the ballpark way, there was using the benefit estimator, which I was just, forwarding through screenshots there, where you log into our website, you click estimate a benefit, and you end up with a PDF benefit estimate based on the scenario that you were entering into the calculator. There's a third way, and you can submit a retirement estimate request to us. It is a DocuSign form. It's on our forms page, and that will submit a DocuSign request to one of our retirement specialists, and they will do all the work for you. Now, the caveat here is that since there's a human doing it, it's going to take them some time. There's also a line for these. There's a queue. So you might, depending on how many of these we have, you might end up somewhere in the queue where you have to wait a little while for this to come back. And then we're going to send it to you in the mail, in the US mail. So that's going to take additional time. That benefit estimator uses the same software and the same math as the web member services portal. And so you're going to get the same results. So that's just my little pitch for if you do have the ability to use the benefit estimator, it is a really powerful, precise tool for giving you a benefit estimate of what you can expect in retirement from a SARA. Okay, let's talk about choosing your retirement date. We're talking about this date in the pension milestone chart. This is a date that you are going to choose. We don't pick your retirement date for you. You are the one who decides when you're going to retire. There are various factors that you're probably going to want to think about when you're choosing your retirement date. And this is a list of those, but we will go through each one of these individually. The first one is, will you have enough income to retire? We already kind of talked about this in the first half of the presentation about getting the SARA estimate. If you do have a deferred comp account, seeing how much money is in there. If you are eligible for Social Security from a previous employer, you going ahead and getting an estimate of that, and just like seeing how you're doing in terms of income replacement. And you could even think about your post-retirement expenses. We do have a page on this. Like if, this is purely optional. If like one way to do it is to just do the ballpark chart. If you feel like you're in the 70 to 80% range, you can call it good. But you can get a little more detailed than that. And we do have a post out on our website that, let me show that to you, that helps walk you through that. So you're going to go under members and preparing to retire. Another way to get there from the homepage is this whole section is if you're ready to retire. It has links that basically link to that section, and there's a preparing to retire link here. This is our section for you when we say that like maybe you're 3 years before retirement when you want to start thinking about this stuff. It's not, it's not set in stone. It's not the same for everyone when you want to start thinking about this stuff, but this kind of gives you a chronological bunch of steps that some information that you're probably going to want to go through. And one of those steps is estimating your future retirement income. So it gives you some links. If you want to get really granular, we do have a budget worksheet here that you could actually calculate your expenses in retirement if you wanted to compare it with your retirement estimate. So it's all up to you how detailed you want to get in taking a little peek into like what your income and expenses are going to look like in the future. Okay. Second topic that you're going to want to think about when choosing your retirement date are the age factor percentage dates. Now, if you have already reached the maximum age factor for your tier, you don't need to think about this because you are already going to get the maximum age factor percentage in the formula for you. So this is just for people who are going to retire at an age that is less than the maximum age factor percentage for their tier. So if that's you, then you're just going to want to be cognizant of what these dates are. So the example I like to give is January 15th. If your birthday is January 15th, 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th, 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th, and 3 quarters after your birthday is October 15th. So it's whatever your birthday is, it's 3 months after that on that day. So when you pass one of these days and you don't retire yet, you go up 1 notch in the age factor chart and you get a slightly higher age factor percentage because you're achieving another quarter year of age every time you pass one of these dates. So the reason I'm bringing this back up now is because what I think you probably don't want to do is retire right before one of these dates and not know it. not know that you're doing that. And then you're going to miss out on a little money. So for example, if your birthday is January 15th and you're thinking about you haven't yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier and you're thinking about retiring on July 14th, you can see that you probably don't want to do that. We would want to work on July 15th, retire on July 16th, and you would go up just by waiting those 2 days, one notch in the age factor chart. You would get a slightly higher age factor percentage, and your retirement allowance would increase by a little over 1% just by working one more day and then retiring the next day after that. So the same is true with all of these dates. So I'm not saying that you need to retire right after one of these dates. What I am saying is know these dates and maybe don't retire right before one. Like consider, like if you're thinking about retiring, then just like, wait a few days, get the next higher age factor percentage. If you're going to retire halfway in between one of these dates because you're just done, you're like, I'm ready to go, that's totally fine. I'm not saying don't do that. Because these are, probably about 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks apart, like 6.5 weeks apart. So if you're going to retire like 3 weeks after one of these dates, don't even worry about it if you're ready to go. Okay, question. Does the age factor percentage increase apply if you're already at the full 2.5% tier? It does not. Because if you are, I'm assuming you're talking about tier 3, where I think it's 2.5% at age 55. If you're in tier 3 and you're already 55 or older, the age factor percentages are not going up. You're already at 2.5%. So you don't even have to think about these dates. So you can just forget about number 2 here. It's not even a consideration that you need to think about when you're choosing your retirement date. Okay, number 3. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, that is good news. And 2.5% is a pretty good percent. So congratulations on achieving that. The third thing that you're maybe going to want to consider when choosing your retirement date is the cost of living adjustment and the cost of the date that you get the cost of living adjustment. So let me explain the cost of living adjustment first off. It's an annual increase. It stands for cost of living adjustment is abbreviated to COLA. It's an annual percentage increase to your retirement allowance. It's based on the percentage of inflation increase in the San Francisco Bay Area from December to December. CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. It's a measure of inflation. However much percentage that goes up from December to December, that becomes the cost of living adjustment percentage that we're looking at. So for example, if from last December to next December, inflation was 5%, then when the next April 1st comes around, after that, everyone who's in retired status on April 1st would get a cost of living adjustment. But before you think it's going to be the full 5%, there's a limit. The maximum annual cost of living adjustment you can get for tiers 1 and 3 is 3%. For tier 4, it's 2%. So what would happen to those extra percentage points then? Well, we have a plan for those, and we have a system for that. And those extra percentage points that we can't pay you that year, those go into your COLA bank for use in future years if inflation happens to be less than the maximum. So let's say then the next year rolls around and inflation is only 1% from December to December. There's only 1% increase in prices. Well, we would give you the 1% as your COLA, plus you had banked percentages from the previous year that we would take out of your COLA bank and add to that 1% to get you up to your maximum annual limit if we can. And if you've been retired for a few years, almost everyone has banked percentages. And so what happens is after the first few years of retirement, you just tend to get the maximum annual limit every year as your annual increase, 2% or 3%. But the reason we're talking about this right now in the context of choosing your retirement date is there is this date, April 1st, where people are looking at that and they're thinking, especially people who are ready to retire in the spring, they're like, okay, it's springtime, I'm ready to retire. I could retire before April 1st, and when April 1st hits, I'll get an immediate 2% or 3% increase to my retirement allowance simply by choosing a date right before April 1st. And you can, in fact, April 1st could be your first day of retirement and you would still get the cost of living adjustment. And then they're thinking, or I could retire after April 1st and then I would miss that increase. So yeah, that's true. But what would happen is then the next year would come around and you would get whatever the cost of living increase is next April 1st and then every April 1st after that. So there's nothing that's really magic about April 1st. It just happens to be that if you're already retiring in the spring, it is advantageous to retire before April 1st because you're going to make more money in your retirement than you would if you retired on April 2nd. But if you're going to retire at a different time in the year, like let's say you're going to retire in January or December or September or July, you don't really have to like time it in regards to April 1st because you just retire when you need to. And then when April 1st comes around, you'll get the cost of living increase. So yeah, there is a time after April 1st that it would have been more advantageous for you to retire before April 1st, but it resolves itself because you earn more credit toward retirement. So after a couple of months goes by, usually then you start having a higher retirement allowance than you would have had you retired before April 1st. Number 4 thing that you might want to think about. Sometimes there is a conflict for people between the age factor percentage and the cost of living adjustment. For this person who is retiring at age 54 as a general member, so in none of the general tiers have they yet achieved the maximum age factor percentage for their tier. And we'll stick with the January 15th birthday example. And they already know they want to retire in the spring. There's going to be a conflict for them between whether they should retire after the age factor date or the COLA date. So they could retire on April 16th, which means they pass the April 15th, 1 quarter after their January 15th birthday date. They get a slightly higher age factor percentage, or they get the next higher age factor percentage, and their retirement allowance goes up based on that increase, but they have missed the COLA that they would have gotten had they retired on April 1st. Or should they retire on or before April 1st, they're going to miss that age factor percentage increase that they would have gotten had they waited until April 16th, but they will get the cost of living increase. Which should they choose? Well, you probably already know the answer because I gave you the percentages. The age factor increase only increases your retirement allowance by a little over 1%. The cost of living adjustment will increase your retirement allowance by 2 or 3% if it's the maximum. So you're going to want to gauge, we know what the cost of living increase is going to be in early February each year. We'll post it on our website. And if it happens to be more than that, more than like 1%, especially if it's like 1.5%, 2%, 3%, go with the cost of living increase because that would be a better increase to your retirement allowance immediately than would the age factor percentage increase. One thing that you don't want to get confused with is these percentage increases, what I'm telling you, these percentages are increases to your retirement allowance. So if your retirement allowance is $1,000, a 1% increase to your retirement allowance is $10. This is totally different than what that chart of age factor percentages that I told you are. So don't get those two concepts confused. That the age factor percentages in the charts are what we use in the formula. And these are kind of simply bottom line percentages that I'm doing to illustrate the idea of when you might, like how to choose your retirement date. Okay, next topic. Under the heading of how to choose your retirement date. So I did mention sick leave conversion. And I did mention that we do that for you. We'll do it for you automatically. We'll convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit if you go straight into retirement. What that means is it means something for you choosing your retirement date. Because if you're trying to do that, trying to do the sick leave conversion, you're going to want to make sure that your last day on payroll and your retirement date are 2 consecutive dates. Your retirement date should be the next calendar day after your last day on payroll, which is your last day of work, last day of active employment status. It's okay if you're on leave this day, on your last day of work, you're still on payroll. Okay, so you can be on vacation leave, you can be on sick leave, it could be a floating holiday. That's fine. It's just your last day on payroll should be the day before your retirement date. And it doesn't matter if your retirement date is on a day that you normally don't work, like a Saturday. This would be your first day of retirement. Okay, so don't get confused. Your first day of retirement is not Monday when you would normally work, it's Saturday. And because there's no gap in these dates, that means that you go straight from active work into active status into retired status, and we do the sick leave conversion for you. If there's any gap in these dates, even if there's one day, that means on that one day you were in deferred status and you lose all your sick leave if that happens. But the good news is that it's very easy for that to not happen. You simply write this date on your letter of resignation to your employer. So this is your last day on payroll. And then this date you write on your retirement application as your first day of retirement. And that makes you go straight from active work into retirement. So it's nice and easy. We even have on our website, we have a sample resignation letter that you can just fill in the blanks to make it real easy for you. Okay, another topic regarding choosing your retirement date is, and this is related to what I was just saying about like when it gets down to like which day of the week that you want to choose. What you want to do is retire on a non-holiday day. And I think also your last day of work should be a non-holiday day also, I think they told me, where you're scheduled to work the day before. Okay. So again, it's okay to be on leave on your last day of work, but you don't want to retire on a day where you are not scheduled to work the day before. So for example, if you work regularly Monday through Friday, don't have your first day of retirement be on Sunday or Monday, because that will create a gap where you are a deferred member. Going back to the previous slide, just to show you the calendar, if you work Monday through Friday, then your first day of retirement should be either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, because the day before each one of those days, you are on the schedule. You normally work those days. It should not be Sunday or Monday, because you don't normally work Saturday or Sunday. Okay, so just to clarify that again, these 2 days should not be holidays. So these should not be Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that. Okay, I think I clarified everything about that. Let me know if you all have any questions about that. So what does the retirement application process look like? Here are the steps. Step 1 is we want you to go through that preparing to retire section that I was just showing you over on the website. It's at acera.org/prepare. And so again, to navigate to that section from the home page, you just scroll down to the purple colored area and you go to preparing to retire. And this is in chronological order. Some of this stuff you've already done, like verify your retirement eligibility. We already talked about that, so you can check that off. Consider purchasing service credit. If you don't have any purchase, check that off. Vacation doesn't apply to you, so ignore that. Attend a pre-retirement seminar. Well, this kind of counts for that because I'm telling you all the information I would tell you in that seminar, so you can check that off. And we do have pre-retirement seminars out on our website I recorded from past webinars, and you can watch those if you want, but this is all the same information that I give in those. So no reason to rewatch that. So you can check that off. So you've done half the stuff or almost half the stuff in here already. So we just want you to go through the section. There are some things to be cognizant of. Okay. Step number 2 is and this is purely optional, but we highly recommend it, do a ready to retire counseling session with us. And what we ask is for you within the 3 to 6 months before you retire, you submit the form that we have on our website that asks you a few questions about setting up this counseling session, and that gets the gears rolling. So you submit the form within that 3 to 6 months before your retirement date. We will contact you to set up a ready to retire counseling session for the 3-month period before you retire. And that also gets some calculations going in the background for us, and some other checks and balances. So it really helps our retirement process on the back end if you schedule that counseling session in that 3 to 6 month period. Okay, then we ask you to submit a retirement application within the 90 days before your retirement date. These are actually the last 2 steps on that preparing to retire page. So here's where you submit the counseling, the form for to schedule the counseling session. Here are the instructions to apply to retire, and the link to the DocuSign retirement application is on this page. I think what they will ask you to do is submit the retirement application before your counseling session, and then during the counseling session, they'll go through it with you to make sure everything is correct and everything is in order, and that you're ready to retire based on the information you provided in the application. This step you can cross off because actually when we relaunched our retirement application at the beginning of the year, we combined this option election into the retirement application, and I keep forgetting to remove this from our presentations, so sorry about that. But it's all, you're going to select your retirement option in the retirement application now, in the DocuSign retirement application. Okay, so you've submitted your retirement application, you've gone to your counseling session, or you haven't, because like I said, it's optional. Whatever date you set on your retirement application was going to be your retirement date. Once that date passes, you're retired. It's amazing. It's going to be freaking amazing. You're going to stop working. You're going to start collecting the retirement that you've been earning all this time. You're going to get to do whatever you want. And we're just going to keep sending you that check every month for the rest of your life because you earned it through your public service. So thank you for your public service, and it's going to be freaking awesome. So what you can expect when you retire is you're going to get your first check after 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer paycheck. In almost all cases these days, 99% probably 8% of cases these days, you're going to get your full retirement right off the bat. And because we revamped our retirement process, and so we get the gears rolling early, and we just do your calculations calculations right off the bat. Occasionally there will be major issues with people's files, and we'll have to get them on 80% payments until the issues are resolved, but then they'll get retro payments that will make it so that they get their full retirement. So you're not going to miss out on any money. Your first check is going to be on paper. Everything after that is going to be direct deposit. It's going to go right into your bank account. Okay, so at this point, what I need to show you are the 5 retirement allowance options, because on your retirement application, you're going to choose one of these 5 options. So it's good to be educated on what they are, because they all do kind of different things. There's the unmodified option. So these are the names of them, the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. For each one of the options, I'm going to show you a slide that has a lot of text on it, but it might seem complicated at first, but don't worry, it actually will seem simpler as I explain it. So for each one of the options in the table, the first row is going to talk about your retirement allowance as a retiree, what you're going to get in your retirement allowance that you earned. Then the bottom information is going to give you details about what your beneficiaries can expect, what you can expect for your beneficiaries to get after you pass away based on the option that you've selected. Okay, so let's jump in. We have 1 slide per option. So the first one is the unmodified option. This is also known as 60% to the beneficiary. Now for your retirement allowance, this pays the maximum retirement allowance of any of the 5 options. This is the one that the vast majority of people select because of that fact. Okay, so you're getting your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Then at some point after that, you're going to die. So sorry about that, but it is a fact of life. The good news is that because of the option that you selected, you can leave money to your beneficiaries. for the unmodified option, what this will pay to a spouse or state registered domestic partner is a 60% monthly continuance. Now, the word continuance just means continuing payment. So you were getting a retirement allowance every month on the last business day of the month for your entire life after you retired. Your beneficiary will also get a payment from a SARA known as a continuance every month on the last business day of the month for the rest of their life. If they're your spouse or state registered domestic partner that you have married or registered at least 1 year before retirement. And the amount that they're going to get is 60% of what you were getting every month at the time that you died. That's why it's called a 60% monthly continuance. If you do retire with a service-connected disability, that 60% will go up to 100%. Okay, now there's a different alternate scenario here in this second bullet point. This alternate scenario is that you don't have a spouse or you don't have a state registered domestic partner, but you do have minor children. Well, you can name them as your continuance beneficiary. They're not going to get a lifetime continuance. It's a temporary benefit. They're going to get a temporary continuance. And it's temporary because it will stop when they reach age 18. Or it can continue past 18 if they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school. So it can continue until age 22, at which point it will stop. If they quit school, then it will stop. If they go less than full-time at the school, then it will stop. If they get married or they register a state domestic partner with the state, it will stop. So that's how that works. So that's a temporary benefit. And then it says minor child or children. It can be divided among multiple minor children, and it would just be divided evenly among them. The 60% would be divided evenly among them. So they're not each going to get 60%. Okay, there is a totally alternate scenario here, down here in this other subheading, lump sum payment. If you don't have a continuance beneficiary, you can leave, like you don't have a spouse, state registered domestic partner, or minor children, you can still leave a benefit to a beneficiary. It's not going to be a continuance, though. It's going to be a one-time payment, also known as a lump sum payment. And it's to a beneficiary or multiple beneficiaries who you specify. And it's basically going to be a refund of your contribution account, that anything that's left in your contribution account. So that's going to be all of the employee contributions you paid into your contribution account throughout your entire career while you were working, plus all the interest that we have paid into your contribution account through that entire time, through all those years, minus the retirement allowance payments that we've already paid you. Okay, so what happens is when you retire, we start paying you your retirement allowance, and the first place that comes out of is your employee contribution account. And I told you earlier that that account will be exhausted within the first 3 to 5 years. So if you die after the first 3 to 5 years, the balance of that employee contribution account will be exhausted, and there will not be a lump sum payment left in there for lump sum beneficiary. There are other smaller lump sum amounts that your named beneficiaries will get, like a partial month of your retirement allowance that we haven't paid out to you, that we were unable to pay out to you at the time of your death. If you prepaid any monthly premiums for our healthcare plans, those would get refunded. And there's a couple of other little ones out on our website that you can read about. So that is an alternative. Lots of people who don't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner or minor children take the unmodified option just because it pays the maximum. There's one more scenario that I want to talk about, and that is if you did at the time of your retirement have a continuous beneficiary who you named on your retirement application, but then you retire, and in retirement, after you retire, your continuance beneficiary dies before you do. You can name, in that scenario, a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. You cannot name a new continuance beneficiary after retirement. So and that is the case even if like you let's say that there wasn't a case of death. It was just simply that you retired and then you got married. Well, you weren't married to your spouse at least 1 year before your retirement, so you can name your new spouse as a lump sum beneficiary. So again, the only time you can name a beneficiary for a continuance is at the time of retirement on your retirement application. Okay, that's a lot of details about the unmodified option because it's the one that most people choose. But there is this alternative for option one, and this is especially good for people who don't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner or minor children, but they would like to leave a larger lump sum possibly to a beneficiary. What this does, option number one, is it pays a little bit less than the unmodified option. When you do your retirement benefit estimate, you'll find that it's only, could be like a few dollars less or $10 less than the unmodified option. What it does is through some accounting, so some different kind of accounting, it extends the time that it takes to exhaust your contribution balance from 3 to 5 years to 10 to 12 years. So if you were to die within the first 10 to 12 years, then there would be a balance, a higher balance left over to pay out to a lump sum beneficiary. This does not pay a continuance to anyone at any time. This is the only one of the 5 options that never pays a continuance to anyone at any time. The one-time lump sum payment is the only option under option number 1 for the beneficiary. Okay, no questions so far. Option number 2. Your retirement allowance is going to be less than the unmodified option, and you'll see this as a recurring theme. All of the option 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're all less than the unmodified option. Okay, but how much less is it going to be? Well, it's going to be based on the life expectancy of a beneficiary that you name. So this option number 2 does a couple of things. Okay. The first thing is it allows you to leave 100% monthly continuance rather than a 60% monthly continuance. That means that whatever your retirement allowance is at the time that you retire, that is going to be the same. Your beneficiary's continuance is going to be the same amount. Plus, they're going to get cost of living increases throughout the rest of their life. So it allows you to leave the same amount that you were receiving as a retiree to your beneficiary. It also expands the group of people that you can name as a beneficiary to anyone. So you can name anyone as a continuance beneficiary under option 2. You can only name one beneficiary. If you want to name multiples, that's option 4, which we'll get to. But it can be anyone. Now, if you do have a spouse or state registered domestic partner and you try to name somebody else as a continuance beneficiary, for this, the spouse or state registered domestic partner's right to the continuance will supersede anyone you've designated as a beneficiary, unless they were to sign away that right. The reduction from how much less this pays you in your retirement allowance while you're living from what the unmodified option pays is based on the life expectancy of your beneficiary. So if the person that you're naming is significantly younger than you, you can expect this to pay a lot less than the unmodified option would have paid you if you had selected that. Because what we figure is the beneficiary's life expectancy is longer, we're going to have to pay them more, so we're going to pay you less right from the start. And whatever we calculate the option 2 retirement allowance to be at the time of your retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, even if your beneficiary dies before you do. We don't recalculate your retirement allowance because they didn't live out their full life expectancy. Let me see, what else do I want to point out about this? Oh, one more thing about this is that, and this information is out on our website, and there's more instructions about this when you're filling out your retirement application, but if you're naming somebody who is not your spouse and they are more than 10 years younger than you, this may not actually pay 100% continuance. It might be something less like 95% or 90%. There's an IRS rule that governs that, and that's detailed out on our website. Okay, moving on to option 3. An easy way to think about option 3 is it's the exact same thing as option 2. The only difference is rather than paying 100% to the continuance beneficiary, it pays 50% to the continuance beneficiary. So this is because this is paying the beneficiary less. This is going to pay you more as a retiree. So if you pick option 3 over option 2, you're going to get a higher retirement allowance than you would have had you picked option 2. And again, you can name anyone as beneficiary. All the same rules as option 2 apply. Do I want to point anything else out about this? You can only name one beneficiary for this option, option 3. And just to be clear, the 50% monthly continuance, again, that is whatever you were receiving at the time, whatever your retirement allowance was at the time you retired, your beneficiary would get 50% of whatever that is for the rest of their life. Okay, option number 4 is very similar to options 2 and 3. A lot of the same rules apply. You can name anyone as a beneficiary. What this does, option 4, is it gives you way more options. You can do different combinations of things here. So one of the things that it does is it allows you to specify a dollar amount or a percentage to the beneficiary or beneficiaries that you want to name for a continuance. Okay, so you could options 2 and 3 cement you into 100% or 50% to the beneficiary. Okay, you can't change that. You can change it under option 4. So you can name one person for a beneficiary under option 4, and you could give them a 20% continuance or a 10% continuance or a 62% continuance, whatever you want to do. You have that option, and you only have to name one beneficiary if you want, or you can name multiple beneficiaries. You could, if you have 2 adult children, you could name both of them half and half. They each get a 50% continuance, which would equal out to 100% continuance combined. Or if you think that that is going to reduce your retirement allowance too much, you could give them each a 20% continuance. So essentially combined, they're getting a 40% continuance. Or if you have 3 adult children, you can give them each a 10% continuance. So there's a lot of different combinations you can do with this. And again, they don't have to be children. If you got, 3 nephews, you can give them each a 10% continuance. People for options 2, 3, and 4, because you can name adult children, people will really get into different scenarios where they're trying to leave big continuances to their adult children. And that, like, one thing I'll say about that is a really beautiful intention, that you would want to leave a guaranteed income to your adult children after you pass away. I mean, that is a really beautiful thing. Having said that, another really beautiful thing is you being financially solvent throughout the rest of your life. Okay, so when you're doing benefit estimates for 2, 3, and 4, one thing that you will want to think is you don't want the reduction that you're getting from what could have been the maximum, the unmodified option, to be so much that it makes you financially struggle for the rest of your life, and then your children have to support you, because that's not a an optimal situation, I'll say. And it is a gift to your children to be financially stable for the rest of your life. So that's my little pitch for that. Okay, any questions about these options? I will show you, actually, before we do that, let me show you. This helps illustrate it a little bit better. Okay, here are the screenshots for the benefit estimator account in your account. So you're doing in a retirement scenario for a future date. One thing that you want to be cognizant of now that you kind of understand the options is you're going to want to make sure that the continuance beneficiary name and information is correct, because sometimes you've already named a beneficiary with a SARA, and that will be in this dropdown. Sometimes the dates of birth are incorrect, and that will throw off all the numbers. Okay, so if you do select your beneficiary from this dropdown, make sure the date of birth is correct. Otherwise, you can just type in the information here. So you put in your beneficiary information, you hit get estimate. So when we zoom in, what you're going to see are estimates for the unmodified option, options 1, 2, and 3, and beneficiary allowance estimates as well. So you'll notice a few things about your benefit estimate. You'll notice that under the unmodified option, your retirement allowance estimate is the highest number on the page because it pays the most of any of the options. You will also notice that your beneficiary allowance will be 60% of that number because once you die, it pays a 60% continuance to your continuance beneficiary. Under option 1, you will notice that the beneficiary allowance is grayed, field is grayed out because it doesn't ever pay a beneficiary allowance. It does not pay a continuance. You will also notice that the option number $1 amount is a little bit less than the unmodified option, and it's not that big of a decrease. You will notice that the option number 2, member allowance and beneficiary allowance amounts are the exact same because it pays 100% continuance to your beneficiary. Same goes for option number 3. You'll notice that the beneficiary allowance is 50% of the option 3 allowance, and you'll see that the option 3 is bigger than the option 2. So when you actually see the numbers, when you actually run the numbers, all of these different principles of what the retirement benefit estimate gives you will kind of come into a clearer view. Let's talk about, and I'll probably go a few minutes over on this because there's a lot of details about the healthcare benefits. Let's talk about the healthcare benefits. So we saw this slide earlier, non-guaranteed benefits. And we saw a list of subsidies, medical subsidy in 3 different levels, dental subsidy, vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy, and then there's a supplemental cost of living adjustment. That's not a healthcare subsidy, but it is a non-guaranteed benefit. Just to be clear, the non-guaranteed benefits, what that means is that they're not guaranteed by the state law. There's this reserve fund called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve that these benefits are paid out of. It's an extra amount of money set aside to pay these type of benefits that your employer and the county back in the 80s. I mean, really, the county is the one that started the fund, and then all our participating employers joined on to have a fund to pay these extra benefits. So this is extra money on top of your retirement allowance that you are eligible to receive should you qualify by having a certain amount of years of a service credit when you retire. And again, it starts at 10 for most of them, except for the supplemental COLA, which is 0. And then the monthly medical allowance has 2 additional levels at 15 and 20 years of the service credit. Let me tell you some details about each one of these, and I'll show you our healthcare plans. So the first benefit I'll talk about is the monthly medical allowance. So again, it's not a guaranteed benefit. Just a little aside, that reserve fund is currently considered very sustainable. It's as sustainable as it's ever been. There's about $1.1 billion in there. So it's in good shape. The monthly medical allowance offsets the cost of a SARA-sponsored plans only. So you can't go out and get your own health insurance and expect to get money through the monthly medical allowance to pay for that. You need to get insurance through medical insurance through a SARA. We have 2 options. There's group plans and individual plans. For the group plans, it only pays the premium amounts. And premiums are the monthly cost of being enrolled in the medical plan. For individual plans, it pays not only the premiums, but co-pays and deductibles, should you have a plan that has a deductible. The monthly medical allowance amount is set annually by a SARA's Board of Retirement. You, the retiree, are responsible for any costs exceeding the monthly medical allowance, and you'll see that in many cases, the monthly medical allowance does not pay the full cost of being enrolled in the medical plans. Now, this is only a benefit only for you, the retiree. So this doesn't pay for the costs of enrolling your beneficiaries, survivors, former spouses, dependents, family members. You can enroll them, but the monthly medical allowance doesn't pay for any of their expenses. Here are the 2022 monthly medical allowance amounts. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to update this yet. We actually just released our open enrollment packet this week with our new numbers for 2023. So if you go to acera.org/OE, that has all of the full packet that has all of the new numbers. And actually, if you type in acera.org/guide, it will pop up the 2023 retiree enrollment guide. And that actually has all the numbers that you're going to want to have. The 2023 amounts, the monthly medical allowance amounts did go up for 2023. But you can see, in general, they think they went up maybe 3.5%, so they didn't go up very much. So you can kind of use this as a general marker of how much the monthly medical allowance pays out to help you pay for the medical plans. And so you can see that the full amount for 2022 pays $596. The 3/4 amount, if you have at least 15 years of service, pays $447. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, it pays the half of the full amount, which is $298. Our open enrollment for Acera is every November. So each November is your chance to change plans, add coverage, delete coverage, if you so choose. Additionally, retiring is a qualifying event for getting into one of our plans. So we will get you right into one of these plans at retirement without a gap in coverage, should you want healthcare coverage through us. Okay, let me show you a few details about the costs of the plans. We have non-Medicare plans, non-Medicare eligible plans, and Medicare eligible plans listed in this chart. So these are the different options based on whether you're eligible for Medicare. Now, Medicare is the federal government's system for healthcare, and generally you're eligible for it over age 65. And what happens is the federal government starts paying a lot of the costs of for your healthcare. And if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you would be choosing from one of these options. If you are Medicare eligible, you'd be choosing from one of these options. Okay, so let me show you some details about the plans. What I'm going to show you is the group plan options first. I'll show you the 3 non-Medicare group plan options through Kaiser, Permanente, and United Healthcare. Then we'll talk about the Medicare Kaiser Senior Advantage Plan, and then I'll talk about individual plans through Via Benefits together, whether you're not Medicare eligible or you are Medicare eligible. These are the 2022 premiums for the group plans, and these did go up a little bit for 2023. So they will be a little bit higher than this. So just thinking back to the monthly medical allowance slide, you can see that there is a good amount, at least a few $100s, depending on your which monthly medical allowance amount you're eligible for, that you will still owe, because the monthly medical allowance only covers up to whatever it is, and there will be an amount left over for you to pay. You can see that this United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO plan is the cheapest plan, and it still is the cheapest plan for 2023. And it is, again, 6% cheaper than Kaiser Permanente. So this is a really crude illustration just to illustrate the idea of how the monthly medical allowance is paid to you. This is a crude illustration of your Acera check stub that only has the pertinent information on it that I want to talk about. Okay, so you retire, you get your retirement allowance from Acera, you get a check stub, either electronically or in paper, your choice. You have a gross pay amount. That's your retirement allowance. If you enroll in one of our healthcare plans, you'll see a deductions column. And what we will do is we will deduct the monthly premium amount for your group plan out of your check as a courtesy to you and send it over to your medical provider, your medical health care provider, just to make it easy for you. Then in the same check, we will add any monthly medical allowance amount that you're eligible for. And what you end up paying is the difference. So that's how that works. One one aside here, this monthly medical allowance and all of the non-guaranteed benefits that you are eligible for are provided on a tax-free basis. This is not taxable income, so you don't have to pay taxes on this. So here is a chart illustrating the premiums and different premium combinations for the Medicare group plan option, which there's only one. It's the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. Okay. And you can see that the premium is $344.44 for 2022. It actually went down for 2023, so it will actually be cheaper. One thing that I wanted to illustrate on this slide, I took the 20-year monthly medical allowance and added a row. So what happens is, what I want to illustrate is that the monthly medical allowance does not pay more than the amount of the self-premium. So you do not get to keep the change to use for other things. So again, it only pays for your healthcare. So if you enroll your spouse, there's a higher premium for them, but your monthly medical allowance is still at the rate of the self-premium. What that means, though, is that it costs you $0 if you're in that situation. So if you have at least 15 years of ACERA service credit, it covers your full self-premium for the Medicare plan. So it's a pretty good deal. So what the Medicare, the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Medicare plan does is it provides a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone. So what you do if you want to enroll in our Medicare coverage is you enroll in Medicare through the federal government, and then you can add this additional coverage to it through Kaiser Permanente. So if you get a higher level of care. Now, one thing I do want to address, since you all don't pay into the Social Security system, do you all pay into Medicare? Does that come out of your check?
Yes, we do.
You do? Okay, good. So that means that Medicare Part A will be free for you. Medicare Part B will come with a cost, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, okay, so what I just showed you was group plan options for you not being Medicare eligible and the group plan option for you being Medicare eligible. These group plans have a group plan area in Metro California. So the areas are the Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser, it's Santa Cruz. If you live outside one of the group plan areas that's based on zip code, you cannot enroll in one of these group plans, and you have to choose one of our individual plans through Via Benefits. If you are not yet Medicare eligible, let me restate that. Okay, let me just read off the slide. Who can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan? If you're not yet Medicare eligible, you live. Okay, I think what I said was correct earlier, but let me just start over. So who can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan? If you're not yet Medicare eligible, you must live inside the US, but you cannot live in one of our group plan service areas. If you live in one of our group plan service areas, you have to choose one of our group plans if you want healthcare coverage through us, medical coverage through us. Okay, now if you're Medicare eligible, that part doesn't matter. You simply have to live inside the US, and even if you live in one of our group plan areas, you can enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan if you so choose. So you don't have to choose the Kaiser plan is the bottom line if you're Medicare eligible. You can choose an individual plan through Via Benefits just fine. All you have to do is maintain enrollment in Medicare. So what is Via Benefits? It is a private health insurance exchange that we contract with to give us the ability to offer you 1,000 different plans in one space. So they administer all of these plans. They contract with 80 plus insurance carriers. And what they do is they help match you with an individual plan, one of these 1,000 plans that they have contracted with the insurance carriers with. So when you go to enroll, what you do is you call them up. You can do it online too, but if you call them up, you'll talk to a certified non-commissioned benefit advisor. So they're not helping you choose. They're not going to push you into a certain company because they get more money from that company. They're just salaried. They don't get commissions. What happens when you call them up is you tell them where you live or where you're planning on moving to, how much money you want to spend, how much coverage you want. You could even get as granular as what doctors you want to see, what prescription drugs you need. And they will narrow down their 1,000 plans to maybe like 3 plans or 5 plans. And then they will send you information on those plans and you choose which one's right for you. For these individual plans, the monthly medical allowance can not only pay for the monthly premiums, but also deductibles and copays. Okay, so the costs for these plans and the way the monthly medical allowance works if you choose an individual plan through VA Benefits is different than with our group plans that we contract with directly. Because there's so many different plan options, we can't tell you how much the monthly premium is going to be. You find that out through VA Benefits when you call them. But, and we can't put the monthly medical allowance into your check, and we can't take the premium out of your check because it's too complicated. So VA Benefits will do all that for you. Okay, what we do at Acera is if you are eligible for the monthly medical allowance and you sign up for an individual plan through VA Benefits, they will open a health reimbursement account for you over at VA Benefits, and we will send your monthly medical allowance dollars over to VA Benefits, and they will put it into your health reimbursement account. Okay, then you enroll in an individual plan through VA Benefits. There's going to be one insurance company that you're enrolling in a plan through, and you're going to owe them a monthly premium amount. So you have to pay them directly out of your bank account. Okay, then you're going to go to the doctor and you're going to owe probably a copay. So there might be other expenses that you might owe. So you pay the doctor when you go to see the doctor. Now you're out some money. Okay, so what you do is you submit a reimbursement claim to VA Benefits, and they will pay you out from your health reimbursement account those monthly medical allowance dollars back to your bank account that you paid out to the insurance company and the doctor. You can set up a lot of this stuff to happen automatically, especially the recurring payments to the insurance company and the recurring reimbursements for that money from your health reimbursement account. So you don't have to think about it every month. VA Benefits will help you set that up. Then you would just be responsible for submitting reimbursement claims for other expenses back to VA Benefits. But I think they have an app, and you can submit those claims through their website. So you can do it all electronically. Now, one caveat I want to mention for the people who are Medicare eligible or going to be Medicare eligible and are thinking about enrolling in an individual plan through VA Benefits. When you get a Medicare plan through VA Benefits, those plans are so inexpensive that the Board of Retirement for Acera decided that they should have a slightly lower set of monthly medical allowance amounts for you all. But we do find, they study it every year, and they find that these monthly medical allowance amounts are sufficient to pay for the full medical expenses of 90% of the people enrolled in those plans at the 20 or more year level, and even some people at the 15 or more year level. Okay, so those are the medical plan options, and those are that's the medical subsidy, the monthly medical allowance. Okay, second non-guaranteed benefit I want to talk about is the dental subsidy for the dental plans that we offer you the ability to enroll in for your dental coverage as a retiree. We have 2 plans, Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. There is a way that this works where if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit or service-connected disability retirement, you have to enroll in one of these plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. The self-premium and the subsidy amount are the same. So for example, if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit and you choose the Delta Dental PPO, you would see $44.15 come out of your Acera check. You'd see $44.15 go back into your Acera check. So it costs you $0. The same with Delta Care USA. Now you can enroll Self Plus One, and what you do is you pay the difference. You'd see $85.96 come out of your check and $44.15 go back into your check. If you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can voluntarily enroll in one of these plans. There's a different set of premiums and there's no subsidy. Vision plans are very similar. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to at least enroll in the VSP standard plan, but it doesn't cost you anything to enroll in that. There is something called the VSP premium plan, also known as the buy-up plan, because you have to buy up into it because the subsidy doesn't increase if you choose that premium plan. You pay the difference. Your subsidy is still going to be $3.97. And again, if you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can voluntarily enroll. The fourth non-guaranteed benefit is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. What this does is it offsets the cost of you being enrolled in Medicare Part B. So when it comes time for you to enroll in Medicare, you're about to turn 65, you enroll in Medicare, you're going to be charged for Medicare Part B. Medicare Part A is going to be free to you because you earned enough credits to get free Medicare Part A. Medicare Part B is going to come at a cost, which for 2022 is $170.10 per month. What the board has decided is they want to offer this Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, which covers the cost of the lowest amount that Medicare charges our retirees, which is $170.10. There are some, if you have a higher income in retirement, there are higher levels that Medicare Part B will charge you. And the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan doesn't increase. It only pays whatever the lowest cost is, which is $170.10. So that's the bad news. The good news is you have a much higher income, so you can probably afford it. Anyway, in order to qualify, you have to have at least 10 years of Acera service credit or a service-connected disability retirement. So that's the minimum qualification. And then you just simply need to enroll in Medicare. You enroll in Medicare Part B and maintain enrollment. And then number 3, you have to submit a enrollment form to us one time. And we remind you to do this every year in our open enrollment packet. We also have a Medicare transition seminar that you can take, and we've been offering that as a webinar too. And we remind you to submit that form there. Once you submit the form, you're just going to start seeing $170.10 show up in your retirement check. So it's a really good benefit. The 5th benefit, non-guaranteed benefit, is a supplemental cost of living adjustment. This one is really powerful. I think this is probably the second most important benefit, but different people have different opinions. This means that you cannot lose more than 15% of your buying power to inflation in retirement. So whatever your buying power was at the time that you retired, you cannot lose more than 15% of that to inflation at any point in your retirement. So if your buying power dips below 85% of what it originally was in retirement, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and it gets you up to 85% of what your original purchasing power was. So if you have high inflation year over year and you're losing ground to inflation, this kicks in and keeps your income stable, your buying power stable. So it's a really powerful benefit. This is basically the last slide that I have information on. Sorry, I'm going 10 minutes over. So I don't have a lot of information about each one of these things because not all of these apply to everyone. So I just thought I would tell you that these concepts exist and show you where to get more information about them out on our website. There is a whole page on deferring retirement, and I think it does give more information than I talked about in the first half of the seminar for the with the new member and mid-career information. It does give you kind of scenarios where it's a good idea to defer your retirement and where it's not a good idea to defer your retirement, or where it's not helpful to defer your retirement. So there's a bunch of information on that page if you are considering terminating your employment, but not retiring yet. We actually did already talk about death benefits before retirement in the first half, which we don't usually do in the pre-retirement seminar. So, but there's more details on our death benefits page. We do have a whole page on divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. I alluded to this earlier or stated it earlier, that your benefits that you earn while you're married are considered community property if you get divorced or dissolve your domestic partnership. So getting divorced or dissolving your domestic partnership can affect your ACERA benefits, and you're probably going to want to read about that topic on our divorce page. Okay, disability retirement. I mentioned this earlier. If you become permanently disabled and you can't perform your job duties, you can apply for disability retirement. And we have a whole page of information on that. It's a kind of lengthy process. It can take a while. I mean, sometimes it could take a year to go through the whole process. But we do have a step-by-step guide to it out on our disability page, if that is something that you're interested in. And if you do have a service-connected disability, especially, it's like very well worth pursuing that information, because it can make it so that if you are awarded a service-connected disability retirement, it can really lower your income taxes. If you want to work after retirement, especially if you're going to work for anybody except for one of our 6 participating employers, have at it. You can go do that, work anywhere you want. We're going to consider you a ACERA retiree. We're going to pay you your ACERA retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. Now, if you do want to come back to work for LARPD after you retire, or one of our other 5 participating employers, there are restrictions on that. There are some duration limits and other restrictions that you're going to want to read about on our Working After Retirement page. Finally, if you relocate after retirement, please just fill out our address change form. I know that you'll probably forget, but if you don't, if you happen to remember it, it's a quick form. This allows us to change your address in our system and allows us to continue sending you our annual report, any official correspondence we need to send to you, and most important, our annual open enrollment packet that we send out in October every year. So that is how we know where to send that stuff to you. Again, we have a call center that answers all of your questions, that is trained to answer all of your questions. You can email them at our contact form at acera.org/contact, or you can call them at 510-628-3000. So on behalf of ACERA's Board of Retirement and ACERA staff, we wish you a beautiful retirement. You earned it. Thanks for spending this time with me. And I wish you all a beautiful afternoon and a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.